blood, incest, and madness. The secret horrors of the Pharaohs. Hey guys, tonight we are going to drift back, way back before the first pyramid ever cast its shadow, before the first sphinx gazed out over the sands. We are going to a time when Egypt wasn't yet Egypt, but a wild, fertile and terrifying artery of life carved through an ocean of deathly sand. You're standing on the banks of the Nile around 4000 BCE. The air is thick, wet, and buzzing with insects the size of your thumb. The sun above you isn't a friendly, warming star. It's a merciless white disk that bleaches the sky and cracks the earth. And just so we're clear in the world we're about to enter, you probably won't survive this. Your life expectancy is hovering somewhere around 35, and that's if a hippo doesn't flip your reed boat, a crocodile doesn't fancy your leg as a snack, or a simple infection from a scratch doesn't finish you off. It's a tough gig. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And for a little fun, post your location and what time it is where you are. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is tuning in from as we all settle in for the night. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The ground beneath your bare feet is a mixture of cool, damp mud and sun-baked clay. This is the Black Land, or Kemet as its people call it. It's a ribbon of impossible life, rarely more than a few miles wide, flanked on both sides by the Red Land Deshret, an endless hostile expanse of rock and sand that wants nothing more than to swallow you whole. Everything you have, everything you are comes from this river. It is your god, your mother, your executioner. Once a year it swells with the rains from the heart of Africa, swallowing its banks and turning your entire world into a vast muddy lake. This is the inundation. For months you live on higher ground, watching, waiting, praying that the flood is just right. Too low and the fields won't get the water or the rich silt they need, and your family will starve. Too high, and it will sweep away your mud brick home, your grain stores, your entire village. It's the universe's most stressful balancing act, and you are living on the tightrope. Your home is a simple hut made of reeds plastered with Nile mud. It keeps the worst of the sun out, but not the scorpions or the flies. Your days are a rhythm of hard labor. You pull water from irrigation ditches. You guide a simple wooden plow through the thick soil. You cast nets into the murky water, hoping for tilapia, while nervously scanning for the telltale shape of a crocodile gliding just below the surface. Your diet is simple bread, beer, onions, and fish. The beer is thick and nutritious, more of a porridge than a drink, and it's the currency of your world. You work for bread and beer. It's not a bad deal, considering the alternative is being eaten by something with very large teeth. But you are not alone. Your village is one of many scattered up and down the river. And this is where the trouble starts. Your neighbour's village a few miles downriver also needs water. They also need that prime piece of fertile land that sits between you. And their chieftain, much like yours, is a man who understands that power doesn't come from asking nicely. This is the crucible. The air might be thick with the scent of lotus blossoms at night, but it's also thick with tension. Leadership in this pre-dynastic world isn't inherited through some grand ancient bloodline. Not yet. It's earned. It's taken. Your village leader is likely the biggest, toughest man around, the one who can organize a successful hippo hunt, or more importantly, a successful raid. He's the one who convinces you that his connection to the local gods, the crocodile god Sobek, the fertility goddess Taweret, is stronger than anyone else's. When the harvest is good, it's proof of his divine favor. When it fails, his position is precarious. You can almost hear him now promising a better inundation next season, sounding suspiciously like a modern politician promising a tax cut. You see evidence of this growing power structure all around you, even in death. Just a few generations ago, everyone was buried in a simple pit in the hot sand which naturally mummified the body. But now the important people get more. You see the graves of the elite from what archaeologists will one day call the Bedtime culture. They are buried with more than just a pot of beer for the afterlife. They have finely crafted cosmetic palettes for grinding makeup, jewelry made of imported shells, and their famous black-topped pottery polished to a beautiful sheen. This is a mainstream historical fact. The disparity in grave goods is one of our first clear signs of social hierarchy taking root in the Nile Valley. The idea that some people are worth more than others, even in death, has begun, and that idea is a dangerous seed. Because if one man is more important than another, how far can that go? One evening, as the sun bleeds across the western desert, a runner stumbles into your village breathless. There's been a raid. The downriver village attacked one of your outlying farms, stole grain, and killed a man. Your chieftain gathers the able-bodied men, you included. Your weapons are crude, a heavy stone tied to a stick to form a mace, a sharpened spear, a flint knife. There is no armor, there is no grand strategy. There is only fear, adrenaline, and the desperate hope that you are on the winning side. You move under the cover of darkness, the stars of the clear desert sky wheeling overhead. The night is filled with the chirps of insects and the deep, grunting laugh of a distant hippopotamus. You wade through shallow canals, the water cool against your skin, your heart pounding a rhythm against your ribs. You can smell their village before you see it, the scent of wood smoke and livestock. The attack is a whirlwind of brutal, clumsy violence. Shouts and screams cut through the night. The thud of a mace hitting bone is a sickeningly wet sound. You are not a soldier, you are a farmer. But you fight. You fight for your land, for your chieftain, for the simple reason that if you don't, they will come for you next. In the chaos, you see your chieftain a whirlwind of force, his mace rising and falling. He is not just fighting, he is performing. His victory will become a story, a legend, proof of his divine might. This scene, or something very much like it, is playing out all along the Nile. Small domains led by ambitious chieftains are consolidating their power. They conquer, they absorb, they form alliances. Slowly, painstakingly, over centuries of blood and mud, two larger entities begin to form Upper Egypt in the south, the Long Valley, and Lower Egypt in the north, the marshy, sprawling delta. The symbols are already there, the white crown for the south, the red crown for the north. And through it all, the ideology that will define this civilization for 3,000 years is being forged. The king is not just a leader, he is something more. He is the living embodiment of the god Horus, the mighty falcon who rules the sky. His enemies are not just rivals, they are the agents of Isfet or chaos. His victory is the victory of Ma'at, the divine cosmic order that keeps the universe from collapsing. Historians still argue whether the concept of Ma'at was a genuine moral guide for rulers or simply a sophisticated form of state propaganda, the ultimate justification for absolute, unquestionable power. Either way, it was a stroke of political genius. To defy the king is to defy the gods. To rebel is to invite chaos, famine, and the destruction of the world itself. It's an incredibly powerful idea. It convinces people like you to hand over a portion of your hard-won grain as tribute. It convinces you to labor on his tomb, to fight in his wars. In exchange for your absolute obedience, he promises to maintain Ma'at. He will speak to the gods, he will ensure the sun rises, and most importantly, he will guarantee the life-giving flood. He is becoming a god on earth. You see this blending of the practical and the divine even in the smallest details of life. You watch the women grinding malachite and galena on stone pallets to create coal for their eyes. This isn't just a quirky fashion choice, it's a fringe tidbit of their worldview. Yes, the dark liner helps deflect the punishing glare of the sun, a practical benefit in the brilliant Egyptian light. But they also believe it has magical properties, that it wards off eye infections and protects the wearer from the evil eye. It is medicine magic and makeup all in one. The gods are not in some distant heaven. They are right here in the river, in the sun, in the very makeup you put on your face. As you stand there, caked in the mud of the Nile, you are witnessing the dawn of a new era. The scattered, squabbling villages are on the verge of being hammered into a single unified weapon. A god-king is coming, a man who will wear 2 crowns and hold the power of life and death over the entire Black Land. He will bring order, yes, but it will be an order written in blood, built on the back of absolute belief, and maintained by the terrifying idea that he alone stands between you and the howling chaos of the desert. The foundations of the pharaonic state aren't laid with grand stones and architectural plans. They are laid with fear, violence, and the desperate human need for order in a world that is anything but. The madness, the incest, and the horrors to come are all just sprouts from this ancient, blood-soaked soil. Section 2. The world you knew, a patchwork of petty chiefdoms and riverbank squabbles, is dying. Remember that chieftain you fought for, the big man from your village? He is ancient history now, a forgotten ghost. Power has consolidated in the south, in Upper Egypt, in a city the Greeks will one day call Hierakonpolis, the city of the falcon. From here, a line of ruthless, ambitious kings who claim direct descent from the falcon god Horus has been systematically swallowing their neighbors. Their ambition doesn't end at the next village. It stretches all the way down the river to the sprawling, marshy delta of Lower Egypt. You are witnessing the endgame of this centuries-long power struggle. The king of the south is a man whose name is whispered with a mixture of awe and terror. He is known only by a symbol, the scorpion. A pretty bold choice for a name, you have to admit. It's not exactly the kind of name that suggests a career in gentle diplomacy. You see his image carved on a ceremonial stone mace head. He stands by a canal holding a hoe, ritually breaking the earth to begin the planting season. He wears the tall white crown of the south. He is not just a warrior. He is the master of Egypt's prosperity, the one who controls the water, the soil, the very cycle of life. But to control life, he must also be the master of death. Word travels up and down the river on reed boats and by fast-moving runners. The Scorpion King's successor is on the move. His name is Nama, which translates to something like raging catfish. Again, not a chill guy. He has gathered the armies of the south, and he is marching on the north, the land of the Red Crown. He intends to finish what his ancestors started to hammer the 2 lands into one under one god, his god. Under him. You might be a farmer from the south, conscripted into his army, holding a spear with trembling hands. Or you might be a fisherman in the delta, watching in horror as his fleet of boats appears on the horizon, their sails bearing the symbol of the Horus falcon. The clash, when it comes, is not a glorious battle. It is a series of brutal, chaotic skirmishes in the reeds and swamps of the delta. The Southerners are more organized, hardened by generations of desert warfare. The Northerners, the people of the papyrus marshes, are overwhelmed. The aftermath is what truly solidifies the new reality. One day, a remarkable object begins to appear, its image copied and shown in settlements up and down the Nile. It is a carved slate palette of the kind used for grinding cosmetics, but this one is large, ceremonial, and covered in images of terrifying clarity. It is the Nama palette, and it is the world's first and most brutal press release. On one side you see Nama. He is larger than any other man, a sign of his divine status. He wears the white crown of the south, and with one hand he grabs a kneeling northern enemy by the hair. In his other hand he raises a mace ready to smash the man's skull. Above the captive, the falcon Horus sits atop a clump of papyrus reeds representing the delta. The god holds a rope that is pierced through the nose of a human head, growing from the reeds, a graphic symbol of the South's total domination of the North. Just in case the message wasn't clear, a royal sandal bearer stands behind the king, a reminder of his sacred status. He is performing a holy execution. You flip the palette over in your mind's eye, and the story continues. Now Nama wears the curly red crown of the defeated North. He is inspecting the battlefield. Before him lie 10 bodies, their severed heads neatly tucked between their legs. They are the defeated chieftains of the Delta. The message is unambiguous. The war is over. There is only one king. Below this grisly parade, 2 mythical long-necked beasts, serpopards, are being restrained, their necks intertwined. This bizarre image symbolizes the forced, controlled union of the 2 lands. This palette is more than a historical record. It is a statement of intent. It is the founding document of pharaonic power, and its grammar is violence. This is the mainstream historical fact that underpins everything. The unification of Egypt was a military conquest, and the imagery of the victorious king smiting his enemies would be repeated by pharaohs for the next 3,000 years, a constant reminder of how their rule began. But was it really this simple? Was it one man, one great war, one decisive victory? Historians still argue whether Nama and the legendary first king Menes were the same person, or if the unification was a much longer, more gradual process. The palette is probably not a snapshot of a single event, but a masterful piece of propaganda combining events over many years into one perfect, terrifying story. It collapses a messy history into a single divine act. With the North subjugated, a new capital city is founded right at the border of Upper and Lower Egypt, the place where the valley meets the delta. It will be called Ineb-Hej, the White Walls, a fortress city that will one day grow into the metropolis of Memphis. From here, the God King can control both lands. He is no longer just the king of the south or the north. He is the lord of the 2 lands. To justify this new reality, a powerful story is needed, a myth that explains the new cosmic order. And so the tale of the gods is told and retold until it becomes truth. It's the story of the first family, the divine prototypes. There was the good King Osiris, who ruled the world and taught humanity agriculture and civilization. He had a beautiful and clever wife who was also his sister Isis. But Osiris had a brother Set, who was consumed by jealousy. Set, the embodiment of chaos and the harsh red desert, tricked Osiris, murdered him, and chopped his body into pieces, scattering them across Egypt. It seems like chaos has won. But Isis, in her grief, refuses to accept this. She travels the length of the land, gathering her husband-brother's body parts. Using her powerful magic, she reassembles him, wraps him in linen, becoming the first mummy, and briefly brings him back to life. In that moment she conceives a son, Horus. Osiris then descends to become the king of the underworld, the lord of the dead. His son Horus grows up to challenge his wicked uncle Set for the throne of the living. After a series of epic violent battles, Horus is victorious. He is crowned the rightful king, having restored Ma'at, the divine order. This story is now your story. The story of Egypt. Every pharaoh beginning with Nama is the living Horus. Every enemy he smites is Set. Every dead king who passes on the throne becomes Osiris. It's a perfect cyclical justification for power. The king's succession isn't a political process. It is a divine inheritance, a reenactment of the original cosmic drama. And nestled right at the heart of this perfect story is a crucial detail: the ideal union. The one that created the rightful heir was between a brother and a sister. It wasn't strange. It wasn't forbidden. It was divine. This mythological precedent is a seed that will lie dormant for a while, but it plants the idea that the purest blood is royal blood, and the best way to keep it pure is to keep it within the family. When your gods have family reunions that messy, it certainly makes your own squabbles with your cousins seem pretty tame. The king's identity is now so sacred that his name is written inside a special symbol called a serek. It's a rectangle representing the niched facade of the royal palace, with the Horus falcon perched on top. It's a quirky tidbit of the time, but it's essentially the first royal logo, a sacred brand that says, "The god lives here." It separates the king from all mortal beings. He is now a category unto himself. You stand now a subject of this new unified kingdom. The petty wars that dominated your life are over, replaced by the monolithic peace of an absolute ruler. You have stability. You have order, but you have paid for it with your freedom. You look towards the new capital of the white walls, a fortress being built with your labor and your grain. You see the symbol of the raging catfish king everywhere. You hear the story of Horus and Set, and you understand. The world no longer belongs to chieftains and villages. It belongs to a god in a palace, a god who proved his divinity with a bloody mace and who promises you order as long as you never ever question his right to rule. The precedent has been set. The king is the state, the king is the faith, and his blood is now the most sacred and therefore the most dangerous substance on earth. The memory of Nama's bloody conquest preserved on that stone pallet has faded into the bedrock of history. Generations have passed. The kingdom forged by his mace is now a stable, fantastically wealthy and deeply centralized state. The pharaoh is no longer just a warrior king. His divinity has blossomed into something absolute. He is the sun on earth, and his people, his nation, are merely his shadow. You are living in the old kingdom, and you are about to witness the ultimate expression of this power. For centuries, the kings have been buried in large, flat-topped mud brick tombs called mastabas. They are impressive, certainly, but they are tombs of the earth. Then a pharaoh named Djoser has a visionary on his payroll, a genius architect and physician named Imhotep. Imhotep decides a simple mastaba isn't grand enough for his god-king. He has a new idea. He builds one mastaba, then another smaller one on top, and another, until 6 stone tiers reach for the sky over the desert at Saqqara. You stand before it, a simple farmer, and you have no words for what you are seeing. It is an artificial mountain, a stone ladder challenging the heavens. Nothing on this scale has ever been conceived, let alone built. It seems impossible, an act of sheer will imposed upon the landscape. The step pyramid isn't just a tomb, it is a declaration. The pharaoh is no longer content to rest in the earth. He intends to ascend from it. This single radical idea sparks an obsessive megalomaniacal fire in the hearts of the pharaohs who follow. They are now locked in a divine arms race, each one striving to outdo the last, to build a bigger, better, more perfect stairway to the stars. The pharaoh Sneferu, founder of the fourth dynasty, becomes the most prolific builder of them all. His reign is a series of colossal, near-disastrous experiments in stone. You might have worked on his first attempt at Medum, a pyramid that suffered a catastrophic collapse. Or perhaps you were there at Dashur hauling stones for his next project, the one now known as the Bent Pyramid. You see the angle of the sides suddenly change halfway up. The architects, realizing their initial 54-degree slope was too steep and unstable, had to make a frantic mid-construction course correction to a safer 43 degrees. It's the kind of panic-induced change of plan that anyone who has ever tried to assemble flat-pack furniture can deeply sympathize with. But Sneferu and the immense state he commands learns from these mistakes. His third attempt, the Red Pyramid, is a success, the first true smooth-sided pyramid. He has perfected the formula. But it is his son who will take that formula and use it to create a monument that will haunt the human imagination forever. His name is Khufu. The inundation has come. The Nile has swallowed your fields, and for the next few months you cannot farm. But you will not be idle. The pharaoh's overseers have arrived in your village. Your name is on a list. You are being called for your national service, your corvée duty. This is the mainstream historical fact that dismantles the Hollywood myth. You are not a slave being whipped into submission. You are a conscripted Egyptian citizen. You will be housed in a sprawling workers' village, you will be paid in rations of the best bred fish and beer, and you will even receive medical care. But you do not have a choice. For the next 3 months, your body belongs to the pharaoh. Your purpose is to build his tomb. You arrive at the Giza Plateau, and the scale of the operation stuns you into silence. It is a city of noise, dust, and sweat. Tens of thousands of men organized into crews with names like the Friends of Khufu Gang swarm over the landscape. You hear the rhythmic chanting of men hauling massive stones, the sharp clink, clink, clink of thousands of copper chisels chipping away at limestone, the shouts of overseers, the groaning of immense ropes. The air is thick with the smell of stone dust sweat and the wood smoke from the camp kitchens baking thousands of loaves of bread a day. Your crew is assigned to the quarries. Your days are spent under the merciless sun cutting 2.5-ton blocks of limestone from the earth. You learn to hammer in wooden wedges, soak them with water, and wait for the expanding wood to crack the stone along a straight line. It is grueling, repetitive, and incredibly dangerous. A moment's inattention, a frayed rope, a misplaced lever, and a block could crush you in an instant. The nearby workers' cemetery is filled with the skeletons of men just like you, their bones showing the telltale signs of lives of hard labor, fused vertebrae, stress fractures, and amputations. Once quarried, the blocks are loaded onto massive wooden sledges. Your next job is to haul. You and dozens of other men pull on thick papyrus ropes, dragging the stone across a causeway. Others run ahead, pouring water on the sand to reduce the friction. And all the while, the pyramid itself looms over you, growing day by day, a devouring beast of stone. You watch in awe as other teams haul the blocks up the vast construction ramps that hug the sides of the structure, setting them in place with a precision that seems impossible for human hands. Why are you doing this? Why is the entire economic output of a nation being funneled into this one single point in the desert? The priests and overseers tell you why. The pyramid is a resurrection machine. It is a sacred engine designed to ensure the king's soul, his life force or care, can journey successfully into the afterlife. They tell you that the gleaming white limestone casing stones will reflect the sun's light, creating a beacon of divine energy. They say the pyramid's shape itself is a ramp, a sunbeam made solid upon which the pharaoh will ascend to join Ra in his solar boat, sailing across the heavens by day and battling the demons of the underworld by night. His cosmic success ensures the continued success of Egypt. If he is reborn, the Nile will flood. If he triumphs, the sun will rise. Your back-breaking labor isn't building a tomb. It's an act of worship. It's a national project to maintain the very fabric of the universe. It's the world's most intense team-building exercise, and your bonus is the continued existence of all life on Earth. A pretty decent benefits package, all things considered. But even with this divine purpose, the fear of failure is everywhere. Not just the failure of the king's journey, but the failure to protect his body. You hear whispers of the curses being inscribed in the tombs of the nobles being built around the Great Pyramid. This isn't the flashy curse of Hollywood movies, but something more personal and terrifying. A quirky tidbit from the time, these inscriptions are stark warnings to any who would disturb the dead. They threaten robbers with earthly and divine justice. As for anyone who will do evil to this my tomb, one reads, the crocodile will be against him in the water, the snake will be against him on the land. He will never have a happy moment. They are legal, magical, and spiritual threats, a desperate attempt to protect the sacred dead from the greed of the living. For decades, the work continues under Khufu, then his son Khafra, who adds his own pyramid and the enigmatic Sphinx, and then his son Menkaure. The plateau becomes a vast necropolis, a city of the dead that dwarfs any city of the living. And this raises a question that echoes down to the present day. Historians still argue whether the construction of the pyramids was an act of supreme national faith that forged the Egyptian state, or an economic drain that ultimately helped cripple the Old Kingdom. Was this a divine project that united the people, giving them purpose and identity? Or was it the obsessive folly of godmen bleeding the country dry of resources, food, and manpower, all for a house of eternity that would benefit only one man? Finally, after 20 years, it is done. The Great Pyramid of Khufu is complete. It stands nearly 500 feet tall, comprised of 2.5 million blocks of stone, a man-made mountain of geometry and sweat. The pharaoh is dead, and his body, encased in a granite sarcophagus, is sealed deep within the stone heart of the monument. You stand at its base, your body aching, and look up at its gleaming white-capped peak piercing the blue sky. You have helped create a wonder of the world. But as you look at this monument to one man's immortality, you can't help but feel the crushing weight of his power. A power that can command a mountain to be built, a power that has consumed the lives and labor of a generation. The human cost is now invisible, plastered over and polished, but it is there in the very mortar between the stones. The great pyramids of Giza now stand as monuments to a bygone age of brute force. You live in their shadow, but the world has moved on. The sheer, overwhelming statement of Khufu's tomb is no longer the primary focus of the kingdom. A new dynasty is on the throne, the fifth dynasty, and they are broadcasting their power not through the size of their tombs, but through a new and powerful idea, an idea that will curdle and concentrate the very nature of royalty. The air itself feels different. The power in the land is shifting, flowing towards the city of Iunu, which you know as the City of the Pillar, but which history will remember by its Greek name, Heliopolis, the City of the Sun. Here the priests of the sun god Ra have cultivated a theology that is becoming the dominant force in the kingdom. The new pharaohs are not just patrons of this cult, they seem to be its products. You see the evidence of this shift in the new construction projects. The pyramids these new kings build are smaller, almost modest, compared to their Gizan ancestors, often poorly constructed, with rubble cores that collapse into hills of debris over the millennia. But next to their pyramids, they build something new, something that speaks to their true priorities, sun temples. You might be a laborer at Abu Ghorab, helping to build one of these strange new complexes. It is unlike any temple you have seen before. There is no dark, mysterious inner sanctum. The entire complex is open to the sky, centered on a massive raised courtyard. In the middle of this court, you help to construct a huge squat obelisk, a stone symbol of the sun's rays known as a benben. At its base is a massive alabaster altar carved with symbols of cosmic unity, but stained dark with the blood of countless sacrificial oxen. This is where state religion now happens, out in the open, under the unfiltered, omniscient gaze of Ra himself. And it is here that you hear the pharaoh's new title, a title that is now formally added to the royal list of names. It is spoken with reverence by the priests and chiseled into the temple walls. Sara, the son of Ra. This is the mainstream historical fact that defines this era. The king is no longer just the earthly incarnation of the god Horus. He is now declared to be the physical, biological son of the creator of the universe. It is the ultimate "my dad can beat up your dad" argument, except in this case, his dad is the literal sun. This is a theological masterstroke. It elevates the pharaoh beyond any earthly criticism. How can you question a man who is half God by birth? His commands are not just royal decrees, they are the will of the sun made manifest. But this new status, this divine blood, creates a very dangerous and very specific problem. If the king's blood is literally divine, a sacred substance, unlike that of any other human who is fit to mix with it, who can he possibly marry to produce a pure divine heir? Suddenly, the dating pool for the most powerful man on earth becomes extremely limited. A noble woman from a powerful family. Her blood is merely human, a foreign princess, unthinkable. The only woman whose blood is of a comparable quality, the only other person who carries a trace of this divine solar essence, is his own sister. Remember the myth of Osiris and Isis, the brother-sister couple who produced the rightful heir Horus? That old story is dusted off and given a powerful new relevance. It is no longer just a myth, it is a divine instruction manual for maintaining the purity of the royal line. The obsession has begun. The pharaoh's blood is now a sacred treasure that must be protected, isolated, and kept pure at all costs. You might hear a fantastic story being told by traveling storytellers, a tale that seems to explain the rise of this new sun-obsessed dynasty. It's a quirky, propagandistic folk tale that will one day be written down on the Westcar papyrus. The story goes that a magician named Jedi was brought before the great Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid. Jedi performs miracles, and then he makes a prophecy. He tells the king that the royal line will not continue through his sons. Instead, the next three kings of Egypt are to be triplets, fathered not by a mortal man, but by the god Ra himself, secretly conceived with the wife of his own high priest. It's the ancient equivalent of a cheesy TV biopic, complete with a prophecy and a miraculous birth, all designed to make the new dynasty's claim to power seem like it was divinely ordained from the start. It retroactively makes them the literal children of the sun god, justifying their rule over the old guard. Of course, this raises a tantalizing question. Historians still argue whether the rise of the Ra cult and the Son of Ra title represented a genuine shift in religious belief or was a political maneuver by the pharaohs of the fifth dynasty. Did these new kings embrace the sun god to connect with a growing popular faith, or was it a canny political move to create a theological power base in Heliopolis, independent of the old established court at Memphis, effectively breaking the influence of the families who had served the pyramid builders? It's impossible to know for sure, but the result is the same. The king is now bound to the sun and to the dangerous idea of a pure divine bloodline. So you stand in the brilliant open courtyard of the Sun Temple. You watch the priests in their clean white linen performing the rites before the blood-stained altar. You see the king, the son of Ra, officiating his presence, a bridge between the heavens and the earth. He seems more powerful than ever, his authority absolute and unquestionable. But in reality, he and his descendants have been trapped. They are prisoners of their own divinity. They are now bound to an ever-shrinking circle of partners, forced to look inward to their own sisters and half-sisters for a suitable queen. This new ideology, born under the bright, clarifying light of the sun, has cast a long and very dark shadow. Within the perfumed halls of the royal palace, the idea of incest is being normalized, sanctified and transformed from a taboo into a divine duty. The pharaohs are creating a dynasty that is separate from humanity, a family of gods on earth. But in their quest for divine purity, they are ensuring that they will pass down not only their sacred blood, but a concentrated inheritance of all their human flaws, ambitions, and frailties. The Sun Temple is meant to ensure order, but it has just sown the seeds of a very specific kind of chaos, a madness that can only fester in the quiet, isolated chambers of a family that believes its own blood is holy. You stand in a world that believes itself to be perfect and eternal. The son of Ra sits on the throne in Memphis, a living god whose divine blood ensures the rising of the sun and the flooding of the Nile. The great pyramids of his ancestors pierce the sky, permanent and unshakable monuments to the triumph of order over chaos. The system has worked for 500 years. It is unthinkable that it could ever fail. And then it does. It doesn't begin with an invading army or a bloody rebellion. It begins with a sky that is too clear, a sun that is too hot, and a river that is too low. The inundation, the great annual heartbeat of Egypt, grows weak. The rains in the highlands of Ethiopia, the source of the flood, have failed. One year the flood is poor, your harvest is meager. The next year it is worse. The life-giving silt, the rich black soil that gives your land its name, no longer coats the fields. They are left cracked, dusty and barren. The royal granaries, which seemed bottomless, begin to empty. The pharaoh on the throne. Pepi II is an old man. He has reigned for decades, so long that no one can remember a time when he was not king. His reign is said to have lasted over 90 years, so long that he likely outlived his own children and even his grandchildren, making the whole business of succession planning a bit of a recurring nightmare for the royal court. But his age, once a symbol of his divine stability, now seems like a curse. He is a fossil on the throne, a distant, feeble god in his palace, while his kingdom withers and dies. A rather persistent, though probably fictional story from a later time even claims that as a young boy, Pepi was so detached and decadent that he would have naked servants smeared with honey stand near him just to lure flies away. Whether true or not, it paints a picture of a ruler profoundly disconnected from the suffering of his people. Your suffering is very real. The promise of the Pharaoh, the divine contract that underpins all of society, was simple. Your obedience and labor in exchange for his maintenance of me'at, of cosmic order. But the cosmos you see is broken. The sun, your God-king's supposed father, is no longer a life-giver. It is a merciless tormentor baking your fields into brick. The divine bloodline has failed. The son of Ra is powerless to command the river. It turns out the whole cosmic guarantee didn't come with a refund policy. As the central government in Memphis proves itself useless, power begins to fracture. It bleeds away from the capital and pools in the provinces. The local governors, the nomarchs, who were once just royal administrators, become kings in their own right. They are the new chieftains, the new big men. They stop sending what little grain is harvested to the capital and instead use it to feed their own districts, to raise their own armies, to ensure their own survival. Egypt is shattering, reverting to the patchwork of warring city-states it was before Nama's conquest. You are now a subject of your local nomarch. Your loyalty is to him, not to the distant, irrelevant god-king in Memphis. You hear stories, whispers of the chaos that has engulfed the land. These are the days that will be lamented for centuries, captured in texts like the admonitions of Ipuer. You hear the poet's words echoed in the despair of your neighbors. The land is spinning like a potter's wheel, he says. The river is blood. Laughter has perished. Grief walks the land. It is a world turned upside down. The social order has completely collapsed. You see it with your own eyes. The poor now wear the fine linen looted from the tombs of the rich. Noble women who once had servants to fan them are now forced to grind their own grain. The sacred tombs of the pyramid builders, once protected by curses and the fear of the gods, are being plundered in broad daylight. What good are curses when the gods themselves have abandoned you? This breakdown of order descends into the ultimate horror. Famine is a slow, grinding monster. It eats your stores, it eats your livestock, then it starts to eat your humanity. An inscription from a nomarch of the time, a man named Anktifi, boasts in his tomb about how he kept his province fed after the whole of Upper Egypt had died of hunger. And then he adds the most chilling line, on whose account everyone was eating his children. It's the bleakest about me section ever written, a stark testament to the depths of desperation. The whispers in your village are of children who disappear, of families who lock their doors at night, not against robbers but against starving neighbors. The unthinkable has become a strategy for survival. This is the end of the old kingdom. The age of the gods has starved to death. Historians still argue whether the collapse was caused primarily by this environmental disaster, or if the climate crisis was simply the final blow to a system already weakened from within. Had the endless resources poured into the pyramids hollowed out the economy? Had the steady growth of the nomarch's power made a fracture inevitable? Was the impossibly long and stagnant reign of Pepi II the real source of the rot? Perhaps. Or perhaps the divine kingdom was simply a house of cards, and all it took was a change in the weather to blow it all down. You huddle in your mud-brick hut, listening to the wind howl over the barren fields. The pyramid of Khufu is a jagged silhouette against the stars, no longer a symbol of eternal power, but a tombstone for a dead idea. The central promise of your civilization, that a man with divine blood could control the world, has been broken. The blood of the pharaohs has been proven to be just blood after all, and the gods have been silent. Chaos, the eternal enemy, the serpent of Isfet, has won. The nation has dissolved into a brutal free-for-all. From these ashes, a new Egypt will eventually have to be forged, but the men who forge it will carry the deep, traumatic memory of this failure. They will be harder, more paranoid, and they will know that a crown, even a divine one, is worthless without an army and a full granary to back it up. The world of your ancestors, the perfect ordered world of the pyramid builders, is a ghost. You have survived the first intermediate period, a century of starvation, civil war and terror. The idea of a single Egypt ruled by one god-king from a distant capital seems like a child's fable. Your reality is the local warlord, the nomarch who controls your town, your granary, and your life. The land is a chessboard of his ambitions, and you are a pawn. But slowly, out of the chaos, two major players emerge. In the north, a dynasty of kings ruling from the city of Heracleopolis claims the ancient crown. In the south, however, a new ferocious power is rising. It comes from a city that was once a provincial backwater, a place called Thebes. Here, a family of ambitious princes, the Intefs and the Mentuhoteps, have consolidated their power. Their city is growing. Their local god, a mysterious hidden one named Amun, is gaining influence, and their ambition is absolute to reunite the two lands under their own banner. You live in this new southern kingdom. The pharaohs here are nothing like the serene, distant gods you've heard about from the old kingdom. These are warlords first and foremost. You see them drilling their armies in the desert sun. You feel their demands in the form of taxes, not just for grain, but for soldiers. Your life becomes one of discipline and duty to a king whose power is visibly rooted in the strength of his spear arm. The rivalry between the Theban south and the Heracleopolitan north, a conflict far more intense than any modern sports rivalry, escalates into a full-blown civil war. It is a long, ugly, grinding affair. For decades, the two Egypts struggle for control of the towns and trade routes of the Nile. It is a war of Egyptian against Egyptian. Sieges leave cities starving. Battlefields are littered with the bodies of men who worship the same gods. The propaganda is relentless. The Theban kings paint the northerners as illegitimate, weak and corrupt. The Heracleopolitans portray the southerners as rustic, uncivilized aggressors. Finally, one Theban king rises to end it all. His name is Mentuhotep II. His name means Montu is satisfied, a direct tribute to the Theban god of war. He is the man who, through a final brutal campaign, crushes the northern dynasty and forces all of Egypt to bow to him. This is the mainstream historical fact that marks the dawn of a new era, the reunification of Egypt, and the beginning of what we call the Middle Kingdom. Mentuhotep II is the new Nama. He has forged a nation once again, but its birth certificate is a declaration of civil war, and the memory of that conflict will shape the character of his entire dynasty. These new pharaohs rule with a profound sense of paranoia. They have seen the abyss. They know how quickly the divine order can shatter, how easily nomarchs can become kings, and how quickly the Nile can betray its people. They are determined not to let it happen again. They are still god-kings, yes, but they are also deeply pragmatic and at times ruthless administrators. One of their first orders of business is to systematically break the power of the regional nomarchs, ensuring no local governor can ever again challenge the central throne. They build a series of massive imposing fortresses deep in Nubia to the south, locking down the trade routes for gold and ensuring the border is secure. They are obsessed with control. This new, grimmer outlook is even reflected in the art. The statues of Old Kingdom pharaohs like Khafre show a man with a perfect ageless face, a serene god staring into eternity. But when you look at the portraits of the later Middle Kingdom pharaohs, especially a powerful king named Senusret III, you see something startlingly different. You see a man with heavy eyelids, deep lines etched around his mouth, and a weary, almost troubled expression. Historians still argue whether this grim, realistic portraiture reflects the true personality of the king, or is a calculated piece of political propaganda. Is this the face of a man genuinely burdened by the immense responsibility of his office? Or is it a carefully crafted image designed to project an aura of a vigilant, no-nonsense ruler who is too busy protecting Egypt to bother with looking serene? The paranoia extends beyond the borders and into the supernatural. The state develops a fascinating and slightly creepy ritual to deal with its enemies. Archaeologists call them the execration texts. You might see a priest writing a list on a simple pottery bowl or a crude clay figurine shaped like a bound foreign captive. The list contains the names of all the state's enemies: the Nubian chieftain in the south, the Asiatic ruler in the north, even the name of an Egyptian official suspected of disloyalty. Once the list is complete, the priest recites a curse and then ceremonially smashes the object. It's a form of state-sanctioned voodoo, a magical shattering of their enemy's power. It's the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a burn book, only with much higher stakes and a lot more pottery shards. To prevent the kind of succession crisis that might have weakened the Old Kingdom under the impossibly long reign of Pepi II, these paranoid and practical kings formalize a new political tool, co-regency. When the pharaoh feels he is getting older, he crowns his chosen son and heir as his co-ruler. It's the ultimate version of take your son to work day. For several years, the father and son rule together. The son learns how to be a king, leading armies, managing the bureaucracy, performing the sacred rituals, all under the watchful eye of his father. It ensures a seamless transition of power when the old king finally dies, short-circuiting any potential rivals who might see a king's death as an opportunity to seize the throne. You now live in a reunified Egypt, and on the surface it is prosperous and secure. Maat has been restored, but it is a different Maat. It is a tense, watchful order. The literature of the time speaks of the king as the shepherd of his people. But this is a shepherd who carries a heavy mace. He has dragged Egypt back from the brink, but the ghost of that collapse lingers in every decision he makes. He rules with the divine authority of his ancestors, but he trusts no one. He is a god, yes, but he is a god who has learned the hard lessons of a survivor. The peace he has created is real, but it is a peace born from paranoia, and it is maintained by a grip of iron. The kingdom is whole again. The Theban warlords have imposed a new, harder-edged order on the two lands. Fortresses guard the borders, a reformed bureaucracy keeps the provinces in line, and the pharaoh, a pragmatic survivor, holds the nation in a grip of iron. It is a peace born from paranoia, a stability built on the constant vigilance against external threats. But the greatest threat to a pharaoh is not always the army massing on his frontier. Often it is the whisper in the perfumed corridor, the ambition brewing in his own home. You are now inside the very heart of the royal court, the place known as the Keret, the secluded place. To the outside world, it is a mysterious realm of luxury and pleasure. To history, it has the loaded name of the harem. But you must forget the later stereotypes of languid women locked away from the world. The royal harem of Egypt is a political institution, an economic powerhouse, and the most dangerous place in the kingdom. It is the ultimate high-stakes reality show, and getting voted off the island is often a permanent affair. Your role here is minor. Perhaps you are a servant, a musician, or a distant child of the king by a forgotten concubine. Your lowly status makes you invisible, and so you see everything. You see the intricate dance of power that plays out every single day in these sun-dappled courtyards and lavishly painted halls. At the apex of this world is the great royal wife. She is the queen, the Hemet Nesut Veret. More often than not, she is the pharaoh's full or half-sister, their union a sacred echo of the gods designed to keep the solar bloodline impossibly pure. Her primary duty is to produce the crown prince, the next living Horus. But she is far more than a royal incubator. She holds powerful religious titles like the God's Wife of Amun, a position of immense prestige. She is a goddess on earth, second only to her husband-brother. Her favor can make a courtier's career, her displeasure can mean ruin. Below her are the lesser royal wives. Some are daughters of powerful Egyptian nobles, their marriages a way for the pharaoh to cement alliances and keep influential families close. Others are foreign princesses sent from the Hittite, Babylonian, or Mitannian empires, living pieces of diplomatic treaties, their presence a constant reminder of Egypt's international power. They live in luxury, with their own servants and estates, but they and their children live in a state of gilded frustration. Their sons will never be first in line for the throne. And then there are the dozens, sometimes hundreds of other women, royal concubines, ladies of the court, the Kekeret Nesut, or royal ornaments. They are chosen for their beauty, their talent in music or dance, their wit. They are the backdrop to the king's life, but each one is a potential player. Each one has a family whose ambitions are pinned on her. And if she should be so lucky or unlucky as to bear the king a son, she enters the great dangerous game. This place is not just a residence, it's a thriving economic engine. This is a mainstream historical fact often overlooked. The harem owns vast tracts of land throughout Egypt. It operates its own workshops, which you walk through every day. You see hundreds of women at looms weaving the finest linen in the world, a fabric so light it is called woven air. This industry alone generates a massive income, all controlled by the harem's own administrative staff of scribes and overseers. It is a wealthy, largely self-sufficient corporation existing within the palace. But it is the politics, not the profits, that define life here. The air is thick with unspoken rivalries. The goal for every woman who is not the great royal wife is simple gain the king's favor, for herself, but more importantly, for her son. A smile from the pharaoh, an extra gift of perfume, an invitation to join him on the royal barge. Every small sign is scrutinized, catalogued, and gossiped about. Friendships are temporary alliances, servants are spies. A careless word can be used as a weapon weeks later. The royal children are raised together in a section of the palace called the cap, but the brotherhood between the princes is a fragile thing. They play together in the gardens, but they are acutely aware that only one of them will inherit the world. The rest are destined for supporting roles as high priests or generals if they're lucky. If they're seen as a threat, they might disappear altogether. Every skinned knee, every childish argument is watched by the mothers for signs of weakness or dominance. In this competitive atmosphere, controlling one's own fertility could be a powerful if risky strategy. You might see a court physician preparing a strange concoction described in medical texts like the Kahun papyrus. This is a quirky, intimate tidbit from their world, a contraceptive paste made from sour milk, honey, and crocodile dung. You have to admit its primary method of action might just be its profound lack of romantic appeal. but it shows a desire for control. Perhaps a lesser wife, seeing the current heir, is strong wishes to avoid bringing a new potential threat into the world. Or perhaps she wishes to remain in the king's favor, unburdened by pregnancy. The power of the great royal wife, however, is the central pillar of this world. Her title, God's Wife of Amun, is a source of endless fascination. Historians still argue whether this was a purely ceremonial role or if it wielded significant independent political and economic power. Did her office give her direct control over a portion of the immense wealth flowing into the treasuries of the great temple of Amun at Thebes? Or was it an honorary title, a gift from the king to elevate his queen's prestige without ceding any real authority? The answer determines whether she was a powerful player in her own right or merely the most decorated piece on the pharaoh's board. You watch the great royal wife as she walks the halls, her attendants trailing behind her. Her son, the crown prince, holds her hand. They are the center of this universe. Every other wife, every other child orbits them with a mixture of practiced reverence and secret envy. The paranoid kings of this new era may have secured their kingdom from chaos, but they have created a gilded cage where the most intimate human emotions, love, jealousy, ambition, and fear, are amplified to an extraordinary degree. The secluded place is a beautiful, perfumed battlefield. The wars are fought with whispers, poisons, and prayers. And a loss here is absolute. The paranoid peace of the Middle Kingdom, for all its fortresses and co-regencies, proves to be as fragile as any other. The powerful 12th dynasty fades, replaced by a rapid succession of weak, short-lived kings. The central government once again begins to rot from the head down. And into this power vacuum, a new force emerges, not from a civil war between Egyptians, but from the outside in. You are living in the eastern Nile Delta in a bustling cosmopolitan city called Avaris. For generations, your home has been a magnet for immigrants from the Levant. They are Canaanites, or as you call them, Asiatics. They came as traders, herders, shipwrights, and even as mercenaries in the Pharaoh's army. Their presence has changed the character of your city. You hear their Semitic languages in the marketplace alongside your own. You see their distinctively painted pottery, their different styles of dress. For a long time, it was a peaceful, prosperous coexistence. It was the ancient world's version of a multicultural boomtown. But as the native pharaoh's power wanes in the distant south, the leaders of this community in Avaris grow stronger. They are organized, wealthy, and they control the lucrative trade routes to their homelands. And then they make their move. Historians still argue whether the Hyksos takeover was a swift, violent invasion, as later Egyptian propaganda claimed, or a much more gradual, peaceful, and largely internal transfer of power. Was it a foreign invasion? Or was it more like the IT contractors you hired to run a department, ending up running the entire company when the old management collapsed? Whatever the exact process, the result is a seismic shock to your world. The leaders of the Asiatic community in Avaris declare themselves the kings of Lower Egypt. They are the Hekau Khasut, the rulers of foreign lands. History will know them as the Hyksos. For you, an ethnic Egyptian, this is more than a political change. It is a profound spiritual humiliation. For 1,500 years, your people have believed Egypt to be the sacred center of creation, a perfect reflection of the heavens ruled by a living God. You believe foreigners are the embodiment of Isfet, of chaos. They are the wretched, uncivilized peoples depicted on temple walls as bound captives crushed under the pharaoh's sandals. And now they are sitting on the throne of Egypt. They adopt the titles of the pharaoh. They write their names in cartouches. They even worship some of your gods, particularly Set, the god of storms and the desert, whom they see as a reflection of their own storm god, Baal. But they are not Egyptian. Their names are Yaqub, Ha, and Kian, and Apepi. It is a violation of the cosmic order. Ma'at has been shattered. The native Egyptian pharaohs, the heirs of Mentuhotep, have been chased out of the north. They are pushed back south to their old heartland of Thebes, where they rule a truncated kingdom as humiliated vassals. They are forced to pay tribute to these foreign kings. The world has been turned upside down. How did this happen? Part of the answer lies in a technological gap. This is a mainstream historical fact that will change the face of warfare forever. The Hyksos bring with them revolutionary military technology you have never seen before. You watch in awe and terror as their warriors ride into battle on light, fast-moving chariots pulled by horses, an animal you've only known as a rare curiosity. They fire arrows from powerful composite bows made of laminated wood horn and sinew that can shoot farther and with more force than your simple wooden bows. They carry bronze swords of a new design, the curved and deadly khopesh. The traditional Egyptian army fighting on foot with spears and simple axes is completely outmatched. The Theban princes in the south are stewing in their own shame, forced to endure the indignity of foreign rule. The tension between the two courts, the foreign one in Avaris and the native one in Thebes, simmers for decades. This tension is perfectly captured in a quirky piece of historical propaganda known as the Quarrel of Apepi and Sekenenre Tau. The story goes that the Hyksos king Apepi sends a messenger on a journey of hundreds of miles to the Theban pharaoh Sekenenre Tau. The message is not a declaration of war or a demand for more tribute. It is of all things a complaint. Apepi claims that the roaring of the hippopotamuses in the sacred pool at Thebes is so loud that it is disturbing his sleep all the way up in Avaris. It is the most fabulously passive-aggressive diplomatic message in history. It's not me, it seems to say, it's your deafeningly sacred hippos. Of course it's not about the hippos. It is a calculated insult, a pure power move designed to demonstrate that the Hyksos king's authority extends to every corner of Egypt, right down to its wildlife. The message is received. The story ends with the Theban court in an uproar preparing for war. The age of appeasement is over. The mummy of that very king Sekenenre Tau has been found. It tells a grim story. His skull is horribly battered, showing multiple wounds from a Hyksos battle-axe and daggers. He likely died in one of the first battles of the Great War of Liberation. He is a martyr king, the first casualty in the bloody war to reclaim Egypt. His sons Kamose, and after him Ahmose, I will carry on the fight. They are a new breed of pharaoh. They are not serene gods like Khufu or paranoid administrators like Senusret. They are warrior kings consumed by a xenophobic fury. They learn from their enemies. They adopt and master the new technologies of war. Soon you see Theban workshops building their own chariots. You see Theban archers training with the composite bow. It's the ancient world's most effective strategy. If you can't beat 'em, steal their tech and use it to beat 'em later. The humiliation of living under foreign rule has done something profound to the Egyptian psyche. It has ended their splendid isolation. It has taught them that the deserts that protect them can be crossed, that the chaos of the outside world can invade their sacred valley. The fire of vengeance stoked by the insults of kings and the death of their pharaoh is about to be unleashed. A new dynasty of Theban warriors is rising, ready to wash the shame of the Hyksos from the Black Land with blood. They don't just want to liberate Egypt, they want to build an empire to push out their borders so that no foreigner can ever again defile the throne of Horus. The age of imperialism is about to begin. The shame of foreign rule has festered in the heart of Thebes for a century. The absurd insult about the noisy hippos was the final straw. The martyr king Sekenenre Tao died in battle, his head cleaved by a foreign axe. But his sons have picked up his fallen sword. They have mastered the enemy's weapons. They have built their own chariots. And now, under the command of the young pharaoh Ahmose, the full, concentrated fury of a humiliated nation, is about to be unleashed. You are a soldier in this new Theban army, an army reborn with a serious chip on its shoulder. You march north, part of an unstoppable force, your mission, not just conquest, but extermination. You lay siege to the Hyksos capital Avaris. The sounds of battle are new and terrifying. The thunder of chariot wheels shaking the earth, the high-pitched hiss of arrows fired from composite bows, the clang of the curved khopesh sword against a shield. This is not the clumsy, infantry-based warfare of your ancestors. This is fast, brutal, and deadly. Avaris falls. The city is sacked, its treasures looted, its people scattered. The hated foreigners are driven from the sacred soil of Egypt. But for Ahmose and for the pharaohs who will follow him, it is not enough. The memory of the violation is too strong. They will not wait for chaos to come to them ever again. They will take the fight to chaos. Ahmose chases the remnants of the Hyksos into the Levant, laying siege to their fortress of Sharuhen for 3 long years. He is drawing a new border in the sand, not with a surveyor's tool, but with the blood of his enemies. This is the birth of the new kingdom. It is the dawn of Egypt's imperial age. The pharaohs who follow Ahmose are a dynasty of warrior kings. They are obsessed with expanding and securing the borders, creating a massive buffer zone to protect the homeland. The new martial ideology is symbolized by the pharaoh's new favorite piece of headgear, a quirky but intimidating helmet-like crown called the kepresh, or the blue crown. When the pharaoh is depicted riding his chariot, leading his troops, this is the crown he wears. It is his war helmet, a stark symbol of his new role as commander-in-chief of a global superpower. His successors push the boundaries of the world as you know it. Thutmose. I leads you deep into Nubia in the south, annexing the land of gold and of... Then he turns his army northeast, marching you through the Levant, across deserts and mountains, until you stand breathless on the banks of a great river that flows the wrong way south instead of north. It is the Euphrates in the heart of the Mitannian Empire. No Egyptian army has ever come this far. You are the edge of a sword carving out an empire. The greatest of these warrior kings is Thutmose III. History will call him the Napoleon of Egypt. For 20 years he was kept in the background by his powerful stepmother and regent Hatshepsut. But when he finally takes sole command, he unleashes 17 military campaigns in 20 years, transforming Egypt into a true global power. You are a charioteer in his army as he faces his greatest challenge. A coalition of rebellious Canaanite princes led by the king of Kadesh has gathered at the strategic fortress city of Megiddo. They intend to throw off the yoke of Egyptian rule. Thutmose III marches your army to the foot of the Carmel mountain range. His scouts tell him there are 3 routes to Megiddo. 2 are long, safe, and circle around the mountains. The third is a direct, narrow, and incredibly dangerous pass through the mountains, a pass so tight the reports say that the army will have to march in single file. Thutmose gathers his generals. They all plead with him to take one of the safe routes. Taking the narrow pass is madness, they argue. The enemy will be waiting at the other end to pick them off one by one as they emerge. It is a trap. You listen as your pharaoh makes his decision, a choice that will become the stuff of legend. He declares that he himself will lead the army through the dangerous pass. His courage or his divine madness shames his generals into silence. It's a gamble that would give any modern military strategist a full-blown panic attack. The journey through the Aruna Pass is the most terrifying experience of your life. The path is claustrophobic with rock walls on either side. You have to disassemble your chariot and carry it. You are completely exposed. If the enemy were waiting for you, you would all be slaughtered. But Thutmose's gamble pays off. The enemy, expecting him to take one of the safe routes, has split their forces to guard the other two roads. When your army emerges from the pass, you achieve total surprise. The battle is swift. The Egyptian chariot corps, with you among them, forms a line and charges. The Canaanite forces, caught completely off guard, break and flee in terror towards the safety of the city walls. And here your army makes its only mistake. Instead of pursuing the fleeing kings and capturing them, the Egyptian soldiers, seeing the lavish enemy camp filled with gold, silver, and fine textiles, break formation and begin to plunder. You watch as your comrades, overcome with greed, let the ultimate prize slip through their fingers. The gates of Megiddo are slammed shut. The plunder is magnificent, but the mistake leads to a grueling 7-month siege. When the city finally starves and surrenders, the spoils are beyond imagination. This is the mainstream historical fact of the era, all recorded in detail by the king's scribes on the walls of the Karnak temple. You watch as the tribute is counted: over 2,000 horses, nearly 1,000 chariots, including those of the rebellious kings, plated in gold and silver, hundreds of thousands of bushels of grain, and endless herds of livestock. The defeated princes are forced to send their own children back to Egypt to be raised and educated in the royal court, a clever form of insurance against future rebellions. It is the Pharaohs' version of a very aggressive gift registry. But why do this at all? Historians still argue about the true motivations for Egyptian imperialism. Was it defensive? A paranoid desire to create a buffer zone so that a foreign power could never humiliate Egypt again? Was it economic? A greedy drive to control the wealth of the world, the gold of Nubia, the timber of Lebanon, the silver of Anatolia? Or was it ideological, a deeply held belief that it was the pharaoh's sacred duty to expand the sphere of Ma'at, of divine order, by crushing the forces of chaos that reigned in foreign lands? The truth is likely a combination of all three. You return to Thebes, a hero. The wealth of a conquered world flows down the Nile, funding the construction of vast new temples to the god who blessed your victories, Amun-Ra, king of the gods. You look at your pharaoh Thutmose III standing in his chariot, wearing the blue crown of the conqueror. The humiliation of the Hyksos is now a distant memory buried under a mountain of foreign gold. Egypt is no longer a nation. It is an empire of blood and treasure, and its god-king is not just the lord of the Nile Valley, he is the master of the world. The empire is forged in blood and fire. The names of the great warrior pharaohs Ahmose Thutmose I and the mighty Thutmose III are carved on temple walls from Nubia to the Euphrates. But between the reigns of the father Thutmose I and the son Thutmose III, there is a strange and shimmering pause in the drumbeat of war. It is a story of ambition so profound it threatened to break the very rules of the cosmos, the story of a woman who would be king. Let us rewind the clock just a bit. The great conqueror Thutmose I is dead. His son Thutmose II has a brief and unremarkable reign before he too joins his ancestors. The throne is left to a mere boy, a child born to a lesser wife. This boy is the future Napoleon of Egypt, Thutmose III. But he is not yet a warrior, he is a child. And in ancient Egypt, A boy king needs a regent. The choice is obvious. The dead king's great royal wife, a woman of impeccable royal blood, the daughter of the great Thutmose I himself. Her name is Hatshepsut. You are a priest, or perhaps a court official serving in the great temple complex at Thebes. You watch as Hatshepsut, a sharp and politically savvy woman, takes the reins of government. This is normal. A queen regent ruling for her young stepson is perfectly in keeping with tradition. You expect her to manage the kingdom for a decade or so until the young king is old enough to rule in his own right. But you start to notice things. The artwork, the inscriptions on new monuments, they begin to change. At first she is depicted standing behind her stepson, but she is drawn the same size as him, a subtle hint at equal status. Then her titles begin to accumulate. Slowly at first, then with breathtaking speed, she begins to adopt the full titulary of a pharaoh. Finally, the moment comes. During a grand religious festival, the sacred bark of the god Amun-Ra is being paraded through the streets. As it passes Hatshepsut, the priests carrying it stop the bark, seemingly too heavy to move. The oracle of the god proclaims that it is the will of Amun himself that she, Hatshepsut, should be the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. It is the most audacious promotion in history. It is a bloodless coup cloaked in divine will. Suddenly you are living in a world that shouldn't exist. A woman is on the throne not as a queen, but as a king. To make this reality palatable, the royal artists engage in a fascinating visual campaign. You see the statues that begin to emerge from the royal workshops. At first they show her with the graceful figure of a woman, but wearing the king's kilt and crowns. But soon the transformation is complete. New statues and temple reliefs depict her with the idealized body of a male ruler, broad muscular shoulders, a narrow waist, and the traditional false beard strapped to her chin. And yet, if you can read the hieroglyphs that accompany these images, they often still use feminine pronouns. She is His Majesty the female Horus. It is a stunning, unprecedented fusion of gender and power. And what does this female king do with her newfound power? She does not lead armies into Syria. Instead of carving an empire of blood, she builds an empire of trade and architecture. Her reign is one of peace and immense prosperity. You might be an architect or a stonemason working on her magnum opus, her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. It is a wonder of the world, a series of stunning colonnaded terraces carved directly into the cliffs of Thebes, a vision of clean lines and perfect harmony. Her most famous achievement is not a battle, but an elaborate shopping trip. She organizes a massive expedition to a distant semi-mythical place called the Land of Punt, believed to be somewhere on the coast of modern-day Eritrea or Somalia. You could be a sailor on one of the 5 great ships that sail down the Nile, through an ancient canal and out onto the Red Sea. The journey is long and dangerous. When you arrive in Punt, it is like landing in another world. You see the strange beehive-shaped huts built on stilts. You trade with the people of Punt, offering Egyptian goods in exchange for their exotic treasures, ivory, ebony, gold, and exotic animals like giraffes and baboons. But the greatest prize is the fragrant resins, myrrh and frankincense, the sacred scents of the gods. You carefully load not just sacks of the stuff, but 31 live incense trees, their roots carefully packed in baskets to be planted in the soil of Egypt at the foot of Hatshepsut's great temple. But how did she justify her rule, this radical break with millennia of male-dominated tradition? On the walls of her temple at Deir el-Bahri, she had the ultimate justification carved for all to see. It is a quirky and brilliant piece of divine propaganda, the story of her own divine birth. You can walk along the temple wall and see the story unfold in a series of beautiful reliefs. The king of the gods, Amun-Ra, desires to create a divine heir. He takes the form of her father, the pharaoh Thutmose I, and visits her mother, Queen Ahmose, in her bedchamber. The queen is awakened by the divine scent of the god. Amun-Ra places the Ankh, the symbol of life, to her nostrils, and Hatshepsut is conceived. It's a masterful claim, far more potent than any earthly politician's birth certificate. She is not just the daughter of a king, she is the chosen biological daughter of the king of the gods. How could her stepson's claim possibly compete with that? For over 20 years she rules a prosperous Egypt. Then she vanishes, likely dying of natural causes. The young boy, Thutmose III, is now a grown man, a trained general who has been waiting in the wings for 2 decades. He finally takes his rightful place as the sole ruler of Egypt. And for the first 20 years of his reign, nothing happens. Hatshepsut's monuments are respected. Her officials remain in place. But then, late in his reign, a chilling order is given. You watch as work crews arrive at the temples. With copper chisels and stone mallets, they begin the systematic erasure of her memory. They hack her name out of cartouches. They recarve her face into the face of her father or her stepson. They smash her thousands of statues into pieces and dump them into a pit in front of her temple. They are trying to make it as if she never existed. Why historians still argue fiercely about why Thutmose III attempted to erase Hatshepsut from the historical record. Was it the petty revenge of a man who felt she had stolen his throne and his youth? Was it a cold, pragmatic decision to remove the dangerous precedent of a successful female ruler, ensuring his own son's succession would be unchallenged? Or was it a purely religious act, an attempt by a conservative pharaoh to restore Ma'at by fixing what he saw as a glitch in the divine order with no personal malice intended? We will never know for sure, but the attempt was so thorough that Hatshepsut, one of Egypt's most successful pharaohs, was almost lost to history, a silent ghost in the magnificent temples she built. The great warrior kings have done their work. The empire carved out by the bloody sword of Thutmose III is now a stable and accepted reality. The chariots are garrisoned. The rebellions in Syria are a distant memory, and a river of tribute, gold, silver, timber, horses, and human beings flows ceaselessly into the treasuries of Egypt. The nation is at peace, secure in its power, and sitting atop a mountain of unimaginable wealth. This is the world inherited by the 9th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, a man who will preside over the absolute zenith of Egyptian splendor. His name is Amenhotep III. You are living in his capital city of Thebes, and it has become the center of the known world. The city glitters. Under Amenhotep III, Egypt is not a military camp. It is a grand, opulent, endless party. You might be a foreign diplomat arriving by ship, and your first impression is one of being utterly overwhelmed. The pharaoh's palace complex at Malkata is a sprawling city in itself, with a vast pleasure lake dug out by hand. The halls are decorated with vibrant paintings of nature. The floors are polished to a gleam, and the furniture is inlaid with ivory and ebony and covered in sheet gold. Gold is everywhere. It is the color of this age. In a famous letter to a foreign king, Amenhotep III will casually state that in his kingdom gold is as common as dust. His court is a non-stop Met Gala, a dazzling spectacle of power and wealth designed to awe and intimidate any visitor. The pharaoh himself is not a warrior. He is a sportsman, a hunter, a connoisseur and a master diplomat who rules his empire through correspondence and lavish gifts. His great royal wife, Queen Tiye, is one of the most formidable women in Egyptian history. She is not of the royal bloodline, the daughter of a provincial official, yet her husband elevates her to a position of unprecedented influence. Her name is written in a cartouche alongside his, and her counsel is sought on all matters of state. Amenhotep III has a unique and rather charming way of communicating his achievements to the world. Instead of carving them all on vast temple walls, he issues a series of large commemorative scarab beetles carved from stone. These are the quirky royal newsletters of their day. You might see a scribe in the marketplace reading one aloud to a crowd. One scarab announces the king's marriage to Queen Tiye, publicly validating her non-royal status. Another boasts that the king with his own arrows has slain 102 fierce lions in the first 10 years of his reign. It is a royal tweet storm carved in stone and much, much harder to delete. But above all, Amenhotep III is a builder. He builds on a scale that beggars belief. His grandest project is his own mortuary temple on the west bank of the Nile. Today, all that remains of it are two lonely, weather-beaten statues of him sitting on his throne, the so-called Colossi of Memnon. But in your time, these statues are merely the gatekeepers to the largest royal temple ever constructed in Egypt, larger even than the great temple of Karnak. It is a glittering city of gods, a monument to one man's ego, and that ego is a colossal thing. Because Amenhotep III takes a step that few pharaohs have dared to take before. He begins to actively deify himself while he is still alive. He is not content to be the son of Ra. He declares himself to be a living god, a divine being in his own right. He takes the epithet, the dazzling sun disk, or Aten. It's a clever bit of branding that really saves time on the deification paperwork after you die. He is identifying himself with the physical orb of the sun, a form of the sun god that is distinct from the great state god of Thebes, Amun-Ra. This is happening against a backdrop of simmering tension. As the pharaoh celebrates his own divinity, the priesthood of Amun-Ra has grown into an empire within an empire. Their temples own vast estates, their granaries are overflowing, and their high priest is arguably the second most powerful man in Egypt after the pharaoh himself. You can feel the immense gravity of their power. Is Amenhotep's focus on his personal solar cult, his identity as the Aten, a subtle attempt to create a theological counterweight to the priests of Amun? Into this world of gilded splendor and quiet religious rivalry, a prince is born. He is the king's second son, another Amenhotep. He grows up in the Malkata palace surrounded by unimaginable luxury. He is a strange, pensive, and physically awkward young man. He sees his father being worshipped as a god. He sees the staggering power and wealth of the Amun priesthood. And somewhere in his fervent, brilliant mind, an idea begins to form, a radical idea that will one day bring this entire golden world crashing down. When the old king, fat and sick from a lifetime of indulgence, nears the end of his reign, does he see the radical fire in his son's eyes? Historians still argue about the exact nature of the co-regency between Amenhotep III and his son. Did they rule together for a time, the old king trying to temper the prince's strange new ideas? Or did the revolution only explode after the magnificent pharaoh was laid to rest in his tomb? The golden age ends with the death of Amenhotep the Magnificent. He leaves his son an empire at the peak of its power and stability. Everything is by all appearances perfect. But he has also created the very conditions for a revolution. He has taught his son that a king can be a god, that the Pharaoh's will is absolute, and that there are other ways to see the sun than through the eyes of the priests of Amun. He has left the throne to an heir who has a profoundly different and terrifyingly singular vision of the truth. The perfect, stable, opulent world is holding its breath, waiting for the coming storm. The golden age of Amenhotep the Magnificent is over. The great pharaoh is in his tomb, and his strange, intense son now wears the double crown. For the first few years of his reign as Amenhotep IV, you, a priest of Amun in Thebes, watch with growing unease. The new king seems to be following tradition, but there is a fervent, obsessive glint in his eye. He pours the vast resources of the state not into the grand temples of your god Amun-Ra, but into new, unsettling structures dedicated to the Aten, the physical disk of the sun. The tension in the holy city is thick enough to choke on. Then, in the 5th year of his reign, the revolution begins. It is not a quiet reform. It is a spiritual bulldozer that will tear the soul of Egypt from its ancient foundations. The king makes a public declaration that shatters the world. He is changing his name. He will no longer be Amenhotep. Amun is satisfied. He is now Akhenaten, he who is effective for the Aten. It is a slap in the face to your god, a declaration of theological war against the entire pantheon and the powerful priesthood that serves it. And that is only the beginning. Akhenaten makes an announcement that seems like pure insanity. He is abandoning Thebes. He is turning his back on the religious capital of the empire, the sacred city of Amun, for 500 years, with its vast temples, its ancestral tombs, and its powerful institutions. He claims that his one true god, the Aten, has revealed to him a virgin site, a place where no other god has ever been worshipped. It is a desolate, bay-like expanse of cliffs in the barren desert of Middle Egypt. You are swept up in the great exodus. The entire royal court, the government bureaucracy, the state archives, the workshops, and tens of thousands of people are commanded to pack up and follow their pharaoh into the wilderness. It is the most extreme case of working from home in history. You arrive at a vast, dusty, windswept construction site under a punishing sun. Here you will build a new city from scratch. He calls it Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. This city is a physical manifestation of his new religion. The temples you help build are unlike anything you have ever seen. There are no dark, hidden shrines containing a golden statue of the god. The temples of the Aten are vast open-air courtyards filled with thousands of offering tables, all designed to allow the unfiltered rays of the sun to pour down upon the worshippers. Because the sun is the god. There is no idol, no myth of the god battling demons in the underworld. There is only the living, visible star in the sky, the universal creator of all life for Egyptians and foreigners alike. And this new religion has only one prophet, one high priest, one bridge between the divine and the mortal. That person is Akhenaten himself. He and his family are the sole intermediaries. To worship the Aten, you must worship the royal family who are its children. Your prayers are directed to the king. This new, singular focus is reflected in a radical, almost shocking change in art. You might be a sculptor trained your whole life to carve the human form in its perfect idealized state, strong, serene, and eternal. Now you are ordered to forget everything you know. You must carve the king not as an ideal, but as he appears, or rather as he wishes to be seen. The Amarna style is born. It is strange, fluid, and to your traditional eyes, almost grotesque. You carve the pharaoh's face with a long, drooping jaw, thick lips, and a strangely elongated skull. His body is soft and androgynous, with a pot-belly, wide hips, and skinny, spindly limbs. The royal family no longer looks like gods, but like strange alien creatures, or perhaps abstract sculptures left out in the sun too long. The formal static scenes of the past are replaced with moments of startling, intimate naturalism. You carve reliefs of Akhenaten, kissing his wife, the beautiful Nefertiti, or dandling his young daughters on his knee. Was this revolution the product of a genuine spiritual vision? Or was it something else? Historians still argue whether Akhenaten's revolution was a genuine spiritual revelation of monotheism or a calculated political power play to shatter the immense wealth and influence of the Amun priesthood. Was he the world's first monotheist, a prophet born centuries before his time? Or was he a ruthless autocrat who used a new theology as a weapon to destroy his rivals, seize their wealth, and recenter all Egyptian power, both spiritual and temporal, on his own person? Back in Thebes and across the land, the old ways are being dismantled. Akhenaten dispatches agents to chisel the name of Amun-Ra from temple walls and monuments. The plural gods is often erased, replaced with the singular god. The revenues from the old temples are diverted to the great construction project in the desert. The worship of Osiris, the comforting god of the afterlife, is suppressed. The entire spiritual infrastructure of Egypt is being systematically torn down. You now live in Akhetaten, this strange artificial city, isolated from the rest of the world. Life here is a bubble of religious fanaticism. Your entire existence revolves around the worship of the sun and the worship of the bizarre, elongated pharaoh who is its only son. You watch the royal family ride by in their chariots, their forms strange and otherworldly. Beyond the horizon of the Aten, out in the empire the warrior kings built, things are beginning to crumble. But in this city there is only the blinding light of the sun and the singular, obsessive and terrifying vision of the heretic king. You live in Akhetaten, the city of the sun, and your life is a strange dream orchestrated by your heretic king. The old gods are gone, their names chiseled from the walls. Your only divine connection is through the bizarre, elongated pharaoh and his holy family. But as you watch the royal couple preside over the open-air ceremonies, you notice something remarkable. This is not a one-man show. Standing beside Akhenaten, equal in stature, equal in prominence, is his great royal wife, the woman whose name means the beautiful one has come. Queen Nefertiti. She is by all accounts the most beautiful woman in the world. Perhaps you are a sculptor in the royal workshop of Thutmose, and you are the one tasked with capturing her likeness. You study her face, the perfect symmetrical features, the high cheekbones, the elegant swan-like neck, the serene and slightly mysterious smile. You work to capture this beauty in limestone and plaster, creating the bust that will, millennia from now, make her face more famous than that of her husband. But her beauty, as legendary as it is the least interesting thing about her. In Akhenaten's revolution, Nefertiti is not just a supportive spouse. She is a co-creator, a high priestess, and a figure of immense power. She and Akhenaten are the divine pair, the father and mother of this new religion. They are the sole conduits through which the blessings of the Aten can flow to humanity. They are a power couple launching a very intense sun-themed startup, and she is a full partner. You see the evidence of her unprecedented status carved on every temple and public building. This is a mainstream historical fact of the Amarna period. Nefertiti performs religious duties that had always been the exclusive right of the pharaoh. You see reliefs of her making offerings directly to the Aten without Akhenaten present. You see her depicted with a stature and prominence equal to his. She even wears her own unique and quirky crown, a tall, flat-topped blue helmet that makes her instantly recognizable and sets her apart from every queen who came before. Most shockingly of all, on the walls of some temples, you see her depicted in the ultimate pose of pharaonic power, the king smiting the enemies of Egypt. It is a violent masculine image that had been the sole symbolic property of the male pharaoh for 2,000 years. But there she is, grabbing a foreign captive by the hair, her mace raised to strike. The message is clear. She is not a woman you wanted to get into an argument with over who left the cap off the sacred anointing oil. She is a ruler in her own right. For 12 years, she is the radiant, ever-present mother of the new age. She gives Akhenaten 6 daughters. Her image is everywhere, the beautiful face of the revolution. And then she vanishes. It is not a slow decline from favor. It is a sudden, inexplicable, and total disappearance from the historical record. One day, she is at the center of everything. The next, she is gone. You, a resident of the court, are left in a state of profound confusion. Her name is no longer mentioned in official inscriptions. In new reliefs being carved in the tombs of the nobles, her image is sometimes replaced by that of her eldest daughter, Meritaten. But there is no announcement of her death, no public period of mourning. The beautiful one has come, and now the beautiful one is gone. It is the ancient world's most dramatic and unresolved season finale. What on earth happened? The whispers in the corridors of the palace turn into the great enduring mystery of this era, and historians still argue vociferously about what happened to Nefertiti. One theory, the simplest, is that she died. A plague is known to have swept through the city of Akhetaten around this time, and perhaps she was one of its victims. It's possible. But if the beloved great royal wife, the high priestess of the Aten, died, why was it kept so quiet? Where is her magnificent tomb? No burial fitting a queen of her stature has ever been found. Another theory is that she fell from grace. Perhaps she had a monumental argument with her fanatical husband. Some have suggested she may have pushed for a reconciliation with the old cult of Amun, a betrayal Akhenaten could never forgive. In this version of the story, she was disgraced, stripped of her titles, and exiled to a northern palace to live out her days in obscurity. It's a dramatic tale, but there is little concrete evidence to support it. But there is a third theory, one that is more complex, more audacious, and increasingly popular among Egyptologists. What if she did not fall from power, but was actually promoted? Late in Akhenaten's reign, the records speak of a mysterious co-regent who rules alongside him. The name of this ruler is a puzzle. Sometimes it is a masculine name, Smenkhkare, and sometimes a feminine one, Neferuaten, which was one of Nefertiti's own names. Many now believe that this co-regent was Nefertiti herself. In this scenario, Akhenaten elevated his brilliant wife to the status of a full pharaoh, a king in her own right to rule alongside him. She did not vanish. She simply shed her identity as queen and adopted the titles and perhaps even the name of a king. She may have been the shadowy figure who briefly ruled Egypt after her husband's death, before the boy Tutankhamun took the throne. You are left in the city she helped build this monument of sun-baked brick, and you do not have the answer. You only know that the divine trinity at the heart of your world, Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and the Aten, is broken. The queen is gone. The 6 princesses she left behind are now the pawns in a desperate game of succession. The unfinished bust of the beautiful queen sits in the sculptor's workshop, a silent, perfect face, her secrets locked behind a knowing smile. Her disappearance has left a vacuum of power and a mystery that will puzzle the ages, another crack in the foundations of this strange paradise in the sand. Akhenaten, the heretic, is dead. His strange, sun-drenched city of Akhetaten is plunged into a crisis of faith and power. The shadowy co-regent who followed him vanishes as quickly as they appeared. The throne is empty. The two most powerful men in Egypt, the shrewd old courtier Ai and the ruthless general of the armies Horemheb, know that a vacuum of power is an invitation to chaos. They need a pharaoh, a puppet with the royal blood necessary to legitimize their own authority and put an end to this religious madness. They find him in the royal nursery. He is a boy of 9 named Tutankhaten, the living image of the Aten. And he is the tragic living embodiment of the Amarna heresy's darkest secret. For generations, the pharaohs had dabbled in incest, justifying it as a way to maintain the purity of their divine blood. Akhenaten took this to its ultimate conclusion. Recent genetic testing on the royal mummies has confirmed the truth. This boy Tutankhaten is the son of Akhenaten. But his mother was not the beautiful Nefertiti. His mother was one of Akhenaten's own sisters. The royal family's obsession with keeping their bloodline pure has meant that their gene pool has become less of a pool and more of a tiny stagnant puddle. And you can see the results of this with your own eyes. The new pharaoh is not a golden, perfect godchild. He is a frail, disabled boy. He walks with a pronounced limp. He has a clubfoot forcing him to walk on his ankle instead of the sole of his foot. He has a cleft palate and a degenerative bone disease that would have caused him constant pain. He is the living Horus. Yes, but a broken one. When his tomb is discovered thousands of years from now, it will contain over 130 ornate walking sticks and canes, a quirky and poignant testament to the daily reality of his suffering. The boy is married to his half-sister, Ankhesenparten, one of Nefertiti's daughters, and is crowned pharaoh. But as you watch the ceremonies, it is clear who is really in charge. Ai and Horemheb are the puppet masters, their hands guiding the new king's every move. And their first move is to begin the great undoing. The restoration of the old ways begins slowly, then becomes an avalanche. The most symbolic act comes first, the changing of the names. The royal couple publicly renounce the god of their father. Tutankhaten becomes Tutankhamun. Ankhesenparten becomes Ankhesenamun. The message is unmistakable. The Aten is dead. Amun is reborn. Soon a great stone monument, the restoration stela, is erected for all to see. It is a masterpiece of political spin, a dramatic corporate rebranding that lays all the blame on the previous CEO. You read the words or have them read to you and they describe your recent past as a dark age. Under Akhenaten, the stela claims the temples of the gods and goddesses had gone to ruin. Their shrines were deserted. The land was in distress. The gods had turned their backs upon this land. It paints a picture of a nation abandoned by the divine. But now it declares the good king Tutankhamun has come to the throne. He has rebuilt the temples, he has refilled the storehouses of the priesthood, and he is spending his life making images of the gods. He has healed the nation. Of course, a 9-year-old boy did not write this. It is the voice of Ai and Horemheb, and the triumphant, vengeful roar of the priesthood of Amun, now restored to their former glory. But did the boy king have any say in this? As he grew into his teens, did he begin to believe his own propaganda? Historians still argue about the level of personal agency Tutankhamun had in his own reign. Was he always just a pawn, a golden figurehead for the decisions of older, more powerful men? Or did he, as a young man, embrace his role as the great healer of Egypt, a pious king who genuinely sought to restore the traditions his father had tried to destroy? We can never truly know what was in his heart. The final act of the restoration is the most heartbreaking of all, at least for the people who had followed a heretic into the desert. The order is given to abandon Akhenaten. The horizon of the Aten. The great city built from a fanatic's vision is to become a ghost town. You, along with the tens of thousands of others who made this place your home, must pack your belongings once more. You are part of a great, sad exodus, leaving the wide, sunny avenues and open-air temples to be reclaimed by the sand and the wind. The court moves back to the old capitals of Memphis and Thebes. The revolution is officially over. Tutankhamun does not live to see old age. His incestuous heritage has left him with a weak body, possibly riddled with malaria. After a decade on the throne, he dies around the age of 19. He has not built a great empire or a massive pyramid. His greatest achievement was to be the symbol of the counter-revolution. He is buried quickly in a small, hastily finished tomb in the Valley of the Kings, a tomb likely intended for a non-royal noble. He is a minor king, soon forgotten, and in that obscurity lies the key to his immortality. His small, unimpressive tomb will be covered by the debris from the construction of a later, grander tomb. Its location will be lost to memory, protecting it from the ancient tomb robbers who will plunder nearly every other pharaoh's grave. And so this frail, disabled boy, this golden puppet of other men's ambitions, will rest undisturbed with his fabulous treasures, waiting to be found, destined to become the most famous pharaoh in all of history, for the simple reason that he was dead, forgotten, and had a lot of very nice stuff. The boy king is dead. His body, hastily embalmed, is sealed away in a small, cramped tomb, surrounded by the magnificent treasures he would need for the afterlife. His name is scrubbed from the official king lists by his successors, who want to erase every last trace of the Amarna heresy. Tutankhamun, the great restorer, is himself erased and forgotten, buried under the sands of the Valley of the Kings, and there he lies undisturbed for 33 centuries. Now fast forward. The year is 1922. You are standing under the blistering Egyptian sun with an English archaeologist named Howard Carter. He is a stubborn, obsessive man convinced there is one last royal tomb to be found in this valley, a valley that most of his colleagues believe has already given up all its secrets. For 5 frustrating seasons, he has found nothing. His wealthy patron, Lord Carnarvon, is about to pull his funding. This is his last chance. And then a worker's shovel strikes something hard. It is not bedrock. It is a step cut into the stone. Your heart pounds. You help clear the sand and rubble, revealing a full staircase descending into the earth. At the bottom is a sealed doorway stamped with the necropolis seals of the jackal god Anubis. After days of careful work, you reach a second sealed door. Carter, his hands trembling, makes a small hole in the top corner. He lifts a candle to the opening, its flame flickering in the stale, ancient air escaping from within.
"Can you see anything?" asks Lord Carnarvon, his voice tight with anticipation. Carter is silent for a moment, his eyes adjusting to the gloom. And then he speaks the immortal words, "Yes, wonderful things." You peer over his shoulder, and you see it too. In the flickering candlelight, the darkness is filled with the glint of gold everywhere. Strange, gilded animals, life-sized statues of a king, dismantled chariots, alabaster vases, and golden thrones are piled up in a state of organized chaos. It is a sight no one has seen in over 3,000 years, the intact burial of a pharaoh. The discovery makes headlines around the world, but the triumph is soon followed by a strange and persistent darkness. A few months after the tomb is opened, Lord Carnarvon dies in Cairo from an infected mosquito bite that turned into blood poisoning. The newspapers, hungry for a sensational story, create a narrative that is far more thrilling than archaeology, the curse of the pharaohs.
A quirky and probably embellished tidbit fuels the fire on the very day the tomb was opened. Carter's pet canary was supposedly eaten by a cobra, the sacred symbol of the Pharaohs. It was a little too on the nose to be a coincidence, and the legend took flight. Several other people connected with the tomb's opening die over the next few years from seemingly normal causes, but each death is added to the curse's tally. It was great for headlines, but less scientifically sound, given that the man who breathed in the most tomb air of all, Howard Carter, lived on for another 17 years. The real mystery of Tutankhamun's tomb is not a supernatural curse, but a very human question. The mummy of the king himself holds the key to a 3,000-year-old cold case. How did this boy, barely 19 years old, actually die? You are no longer an archaeologist, you are a forensic investigator, and the evidence is the king's own body. For decades, the leading theory was murder. In 1968, the mummy was X-rayed for the first time. The images revealed something startling: 2 loose fragments of bone inside the king's skull. The conclusion seemed obvious. The boy had been struck on the back of the head. Assassination. The suspects were immediately clear, the 2 men with the most to gain from his death. The old vizier A, who married Tut's young widow Ankhesenamun and became the next pharaoh, and the powerful general Horemheb, who muscled I out of the way and took the throne after him. It was a perfect story of intrigue and betrayal, a very ancient episode of CSI Thebes. But in the 21st century, your team has better tools. The mummy is put through a state-of-the-art CT scanner, offering a detailed 3-dimensional view of his remains. The new evidence rewrites the story completely. That damning skull fracture. The scans show it has clean edges and no signs of healing, meaning it happened after death. It was most likely caused by the ancient embalmers, a clumsy slip as they were removing the brain through his nose. So the murder theory is out. But the scans reveal the real cause of death, and it's a story of tragedy, not treason. You see a catastrophic injury to his left leg, a severe compound fracture just above the knee. The bone is shattered, and the wound would have been open to infection. Then your team runs DNA tests on his tissues. The results are a bombshell. They find the DNA of the parasite Plasmodium falciparum, the deadliest strain of malaria. The final picture becomes clear. Tutankhamun was not a strong young man. He was a frail and disabled king, his body weakened by generations of incest. He has a club foot, he has bone disease, and he has a compromised immune system. In this fragile state, he suffers a horrific leg fracture, perhaps from a fall from his chariot. The open wound becomes infected. Gangrene likely sets in. At the same time, he is hit by a severe, debilitating bout of malaria. This perfect storm of trauma and disease is too much for his weak body to handle. He dies not from an assassin's blow, but from a combination of bad luck and bad genes. The story of murder was thrilling. But the truth science tells us is perhaps even more tragic. He wasn't struck down by a powerful rival whose ambition he stood in the way of. He simply succumbed to the frailties of his own body, a final pathetic inheritance from the bizarre and obsessive family he was born into. The whispers of murder may never completely fade, but the evidence in his own bones points to a very human and very sad end for the Golden Boy King. The Boy King Tutankhamun is in his tomb. His successor, the old courtier A, has a brief 4-year reign, and then he too is gone. And with him, the last tenuous link to the royal bloodline of the great 18th dynasty is severed. The Amarna family is extinct. The throne is empty. There is a deafening silence in the halls of power. But it is the silence of a predator that has finally stopped stalking its prey. Everyone in Egypt knows who is truly in charge. The commander of the armies, the power behind the throne for 2 decades. The man who has patiently waited for his moment finally steps out of the shadows. His name is Horemheb. He is a commoner, a brilliant general with no drop of royal blood in his veins. But in the wake of the Amarna chaos, blood purity is no longer the most valuable commodity. What Egypt craves is order, strength, and a return to tradition. Horemheb is the man to deliver it. He is the ultimate political fixer arriving on the scene to clean up a very, very messy situation. You watch as he masterfully legitimizes his seizure of power. He can't claim a divine bloodline, so he invents a divine backstory. He has inscriptions carved that claim the god Horus of his hometown chose him for greatness as a young man. He then travels to Thebes and stages a grand ceremony where the oracle of the mighty god Amun-Ra conveniently proclaims him the rightful king. To top it off, he marries a noblewoman named Mutnojmet, who may have been Nefertiti's sister, creating a paper-thin connection to the old dynasty. It is a masterclass in political maneuvering. But Horemheb is not interested in connecting himself to the recent past. He is interested in destroying it. The restoration under Tutankhamun was a gentle return to the old ways. Horemheb's restoration is a brutal, systematic and vengeful purge. He intends to erase the Amarna period from time itself. The order goes out across the land. You may be a stonemason, part of a crew sent to the ghost city of Akhenaten. Your job is not simply to let the desert reclaim it. Your job is to tear it down. You and thousands of others dismantle Akhenaten's palaces, temples, and homes stone by stone. It is a city built on heresy, and its every brick must be scattered. And then comes the ultimate act of desecration. You take the stones from Akhenaten's temples, small standardized blocks called talatat, and you transport them back to Thebes. There, at the great temple of Karnak, you use them as landfill. You take a block, its painted side still showing the strange, elongated face of the heretic king, and you turn it inwards, using it as worthless rubble fill for the core of the massive new temple pylons that Horemheb is building. It is the ancient world's most aggressive and most contemptuous form of recycling. The physical erasure is followed by a historical one. Horemheb commissions new official king lists. In these lists, the timeline of Egypt is rewritten. The history of the last 30 years is simply deleted. The official record will now show that the magnificent Amenhotep III was succeeded directly by Horemheb. The names of Akhenaten, Smenkhkare, Nefertiti, Tutankhamun, and I are all cast into a memory hole. Officially, they never existed. But Horemheb the pragmatist knows that the heresy was a symptom of a deeper rot. The chaos of Akhenaten's rule had led to widespread corruption. To restore Ma'at, you need more than just the right gods. You need law and order. So he issues his great edict. You hear the decree read in your village square. It is a litany of crimes and their brutal punishments. If a tax collector is found to be extorting the poor, his nose will be cut off and he will be exiled to the desolate border forts. If a soldier steals the hide from a peasant, he will receive 100 blows and 5 open wounds. It is terrifyingly harsh, but after decades of instability, the law has a reassuringly sharp set of teeth again. You have to admit, the threat of losing your nose is a pretty strong incentive to file your taxes correctly. So who was this man? Was he a loyal patriot, a humble servant of Egypt, who reluctantly stepped in to clean up a mess he had no hand in making? Or was he something more sinister? Historians still argue about Horemheb's true relationship with the Amarna pharaohs. Was he a ruthlessly ambitious operator from the start, patiently maneuvering himself, waiting for the entire royal family to die out so he could seize the ultimate prize. His own carefully curated history makes it impossible to know the truth. Horemheb rules for nearly 30 years, a long and stable reign that finally washes the taste of the Amarna experiment from Egypt's mouth. He is an old man now, and like the kings before him, he has no son to succeed him, but he will not allow the nation to fall back into chaos. In a final act of supreme pragmatism, he appoints his most trusted friend and fellow general, a man from the Delta named Paramesu, to be his heir. This general will take the throne as Ramesses I. He is the founder of a new dynasty, the 19th dynasty, the age of the great Ramesside kings. Horemheb, the commoner, the general, the fixer, has not only surgically removed the recent past, but he has also secured the future. The great mad fever of the Amarna heresy is finally over its memory, buried deep inside a pylon at Karnak, a nightmare that Egypt can now pretend never happened. Horemheb the Great Fixer has wiped the slate clean. The mad dream of Amarna is now a buried secret, and the new dynasty he founded is ready to restore Egypt to its traditional glory. After the brief reign of Ramesses I and the solid, respectable rule of his son Seti-I, the double crown passes to a young man who will define the age, a pharaoh with an ego as monumental as the temples he will build. His name is Ramesses II. From the moment he takes the throne, you know that this king is different. He is not a grim restorer like Horemheb or a pious warrior like Thutmose III. He is a showman, a master of branding, an ancient pharaoh with the soul of a modern media mogul. His ambition is not just to rule Egypt, but to plaster his name and image over every available surface. He doesn't just build new temples, he usurps the monuments of his ancestors, brazenly carving his own name over theirs, claiming their achievements as his own. You can't walk through a town square or a temple courtyard without seeing his cartouche. It's like living inside the social media feed of a particularly insecure billionaire. The defining moment of his reign, the event he will use to build his entire legend, comes in the 5th year of his rule. He marches the Egyptian army into Syria to challenge the mighty Hittite Empire for control of the strategic city of Kadesh. You are a soldier in his army, part of a grand expedition to restore the glory of the empire. As you near Kadesh, 2 local herdsmen are captured. They are brought before the pharaoh, and they tell him exactly what he wants to hear. The Hittite army is terrified of him and is hiding 100 miles to the north. Ramesses, young and eager for glory, believes them without question. He orders his division to push ahead, leaving the other 3 divisions of his army scattered for miles behind him. He sets up camp just outside the city, confident of an easy victory. It is a trap. The herdsmen are Hittite spies. The entire Hittite army, with thousands of heavy chariots, is hidden just behind the city. The attack, when it comes, is a catastrophe. You are in the 2nd Egyptian division, just beginning to cross the river, when the Hittite chariots crash into your flank with the force of a tidal wave. The division disintegrates into pure panic. Men and horses are cut down. Survivors flee in terror, running blindly towards Ramesses's camp, the Hittite chariots right behind them. The ambush is perfectly executed. Ramesses is cut off, his camp is overrun, and his army is on the verge of total annihilation. This is what you saw. This is what really happened. But this is not the story Ramesses will tell. The official version, the one you will soon be ordered to carve on every temple in Egypt, is a tale of singular divine heroism. In this version, Ramesses, seeing his men flee like cowards, finds himself completely alone, surrounded by 2,500 enemy chariots. In his moment of desperation, he prays to his divine father, the god Amun. The god hears his plea and comes to his aid. Filled with divine strength, Ramesses single-handedly mounts his chariot and charges the entire Hittite army. I was before them like Set in his moment. His inscription will read, he becomes a whirlwind of destruction, cutting down his enemies, driving them into the Orontes River, and holding off the entire enemy force by himself until reinforcements arrive. It is a spectacular story, but one that was creatively edited for the highlight reel. The reality of the battle was a desperate, bloody scramble. Ramesses did fight bravely to avoid capture, but the day was saved not by a god, but by the timely arrival of another Egyptian division that managed to surprise the preoccupied Hittites. The battle raged to a violent stalemate. Ramesses was lucky to escape with his life and a fraction of his army. It was at best a tactical draw, but Ramesses returns to Egypt and declares it the greatest victory in human history, and the propaganda war begins. You, a master stonecarver, are put to work. At Karnak, at Luxor, at Abydos, and at his magnificent new cliffside temples at Abu Simbel, you chisel the glorious lie into stone for all eternity. You carve the massive reliefs showing the lone pharaoh 10 times the size of any other man, scattering the terrified Hittite hordes. You know it's not true, but the image is so powerful, so confident, it becomes the truth. Years later, with the two empires exhausted, Ramesses signs a formal peace treaty with the Hittites, the first of its kind in recorded history. He spins this, of course, as the terrified Hittite king begging him for peace. He even marries a Hittite princess to seal the deal. His personal life is another form of propaganda. He has many wives, most famously his beloved great royal wife Nefertari. But he also takes several of his own daughters as his wives, including his firstborn, Bintanath. This incestuous act elevates his family to a purely divine status, a family that does not need to mix with mortals. He also fathers an astonishing number of children, well over 100. He wasn't just building monuments, he was building his own personal army, ensuring his legacy would be everywhere. Ramesses reigns for 67 years, outliving most of his own children. By the time he dies, an old man in his 90s, his propaganda has been repeated so often that it has completely replaced the truth. The disastrous ambush at Kadesh is now his finest hour. His usurped statues are now seen as his own. He has so thoroughly branded himself as Ramesses the Great that his name will forever define Egypt's golden age. He is living proof of a timeless rule. History is not always written by the victor, but sometimes by the man with the loudest voice, the biggest ego, and the most chisels. The age of Ramesses the Great is now a golden memory, a standard against which his successors are measured and found wanting. You are living in the reign of his namesake, Ramesses III, about a century later. He is a good pharaoh, a competent warrior who has saved Egypt from waves of mysterious invaders from across the sea, the so-called Sea Peoples. He builds temples and projects an aura of power, consciously mimicking his legendary ancestor. But you can feel that the glory is fading. The empire is shrinking, the treasury is strained, and the great machine of the state is beginning to sputter. In times of uncertainty, ambition curdles into conspiracy. You are a minor functionary in the royal court, a scribe or a servant. You are invisible, and so you see the things that are meant to remain hidden. You are familiar with the politics of the royal harem, the constant low-level jockeying for favor. But now you begin to sense something different, something more dangerous. The whispers have a sharper edge. The glances between certain officials are held a fraction of a second too long. A plot is taking root in the perfumed heart of the palace. The source of the rot is a lesser wife of the king, a woman named Tii. Ramesses III has already officially designated the heir to the throne a son by his great royal wife. This has condemned Tii's own son, Prince Pentawr, to a life of comfortable obscurity. Taiye is not the kind of woman to accept this fate for her child. She begins to gather allies. Her network grows with terrifying speed, a testament to the simmering discontent within the kingdom. She recruits other women of the harem. She seduces high officials, including the chief of the treasury and several army generals who command the troops in Nubia. Even the king's own butlers and chamberlains, the men who attend to his most private needs, are drawn into the web. It is a conspiracy that reaches from the king's bedroom to the highest levels of the state. The plot is as simple as it is audacious. They will murder the living god, and in the ensuing chaos, place Prince Pentawr on the throne. It's shaping up to be a season of a prestige TV drama, but with higher stakes and a lot more magic. Because this is not just a plan of poison and daggers, the conspirators turn to a darker, more ancient power. You, perhaps as a scribe transcribing the confessions at the subsequent trial, will read the chilling details from the court records. One of the plotters, a royal butler, admits to getting his hands on a book of black magic from the royal library. He uses its forbidden knowledge to craft wax figurines and potions to enfeeble the limbs of men. Another conspirator, a military commander, creates wax dolls in the image of the pharaoh, and key members of his court, believing that by harming the dolls, he can inflict real-world paralysis and pain. Their plan is a potent cocktail of high treason and advanced voodoo. Magical scrolls with spells of incapacitation are smuggled into the supposedly secure royal harem, passed from hand to hand, ready for the moment to strike. The plot is discovered at the 11th hour, just as it is about to be launched during a great festival at the king's palace. A wave of arrests sweeps through the court. Panic and paranoia grip the capital. Ramesses III convenes a special court of 12 high-ranking judges to try the conspirators. But there is a strange and ominous tone to the proceedings. The pharaoh himself is never present. The court documents refer to him only as the great god. The judges are given their commission with a chilling instruction: investigate the matter and then carry out the punishments yourselves. The implication is that the king is either too grievously wounded to preside or perhaps already dead. The verdicts are swift and brutal. The highest-ranking officials, the generals, the treasury chief, the chamberlains, are found guilty. But these are powerful men. The state cannot be seen to be executing its own elite. So the court records state that they were left to their own devices and that they took their own lives. This is a sanitized way of saying they were handed a blade or a cup of poison and forced to commit suicide in the courtroom. It is the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a very harsh self-review. Even Prince Pentawr, the boy at the center of the plot, is found guilty and takes his own life. But the central question has haunted historians for centuries: was the conspiracy successful? Did they actually kill the king? The ancient court documents are maddeningly vague on this point. For over 3,000 years, the answer was a mystery. Until now. Modern forensic science has reopened the case. You can now be the medical examiner looking at the CT scans of Ramesses III's mummy. As you virtually peel back the layers of ancient linen bandages around the king's neck, you find the secret the embalmers tried to hide. There it is. A horrific gash 7 centimeters long and going almost to the spine. The wound severs the trachea, the esophagus, and all the major arteries. The king's throat was cut by a very sharp blade, a blow delivered with such force that it would have caused immediate death. They did it. The assassins got to him. The harem's magical assassins, with their wax dolls and their smuggled spells, had a very real, very sharp knife to back up their curses. The plot to kill a god had succeeded. The discovery of the conspiracy and the swift execution of the plotters ensured that their chosen candidate Pentuer never took the throne. The legitimate line of succession was preserved, but the divine king was dead murdered by the ambitions of his own household. The sacred aura of the pharaoh's invincibility had been sliced open not by a foreign army, but by a blade in the dark held by a hand from his own harem. The murder of Ramesses III was a mortal wound not just to a man, but to the institution of the pharaoh itself. The god-king had been proven to be flesh and blood, and his divine protection was a myth. In the decades that follow, you are living through the slow, agonizing decay of the new kingdom.
A succession of weak pharaohs, all named Ramesses, sits on the throne in the distant north, but they are kings in name only. The real power now lies with the high priests of Amun at Thebes, who have become hereditary military rulers. The nation is fractured, the empire is a distant memory, and the economy is in freefall. You live in the village of Deir el-Medina on the west bank of the Nile at Thebes. Your ancestors were the privileged artisans who built and decorated the magnificent tombs in the Valley of the Kings. But now there are no great tombs being built. The state treasury is empty. You haven't been paid your grain rations in months. Your family is starving. This is the era of the world's first recorded labor strikes, as your fellow workers lay down their tools and protest, shouting, "We are hungry." Desperation hangs in the air like dust, and every night you look across the river at the cliffs of the Valley of the Kings. You know what lies beneath that barren rock.
Your grandfather helped build the tomb of Ramesses the Great. You know the secret corridors, the hidden chambers. And you know that those chambers are filled with gold, tons of it. The gods seem very far away, and the fear of a long-dead king's curse is nothing compared to the immediate gnawing fear of your children starving to death. Mayat, the divine order, doesn't fill an empty belly. So, one night you and a small group of your neighbors make a choice. You take your tools, your copper chisels and wooden mallets, and you slip away into the desolate, moonlit valley. You know the location of a minor royal tomb, one that has been forgotten. You work for hours, tunneling through the soft limestone, your hearts pounding with a mixture of terror and grim determination. You break through the sealed doorways, the air stale with the scent of ancient incense and decay. And then your torchlight falls upon it, a golden coffin, surrounded by gilded furniture, jewelry, and alabaster jars. It is more wealth than you have ever seen in your life. This is the moment of ultimate sacrilege. You and your gang pry open the nested coffins. You pull out the mummy of the pharaoh, a man who was once a god on earth. You tear at his linen wrappings, ripping away the golden amulets and pectorals that were meant to protect him on his journey to the afterlife. The confessions of men like you, recorded on court documents, are brutally honest. We stripped off the gold that we found on the noble mummy of this god. We found his royal wife likewise. We set fire to their coffins. You are not just robbing a grave. You are destroying a soul, erasing a king from eternity for a few pounds of gold. You have become a hyena feeding on the corpse of your own civilization. The robberies become an epidemic. The sacred valley is being hollowed out night after night. Eventually, the authorities are forced to act, and the mainstream historical fact of this era is preserved in the tomb robbery papyri. These are the detailed court records of the trials. They reveal a sordid tale of crime and corruption. A conflict erupts between Parsa, the honest mayor of the east bank of Thebes, and Powerah, the corrupt mayor of the west bank where the valley is located. Pazer accuses Powerer of being complicit in the thefts. Powerer stages a sham investigation, torturing a few low-level thieves who conveniently confess to only minor crimes. He is acquitted. It is like asking a fox to investigate a missing chicken. But the trials do give us the voices of the robbers themselves. You are caught, and the investigators beat the soles of your feet with a rod until you confess. Your testimony, recorded by a scribe, is a stunningly detailed how-to guide for future felons, laying out exactly which tombs you violated and how. The whole affair raises a dark question that historians still debate. Was this just the work of desperate gangs of starving workers? Or was this a vast, organized criminal enterprise secretly sanctioned and controlled by the highest officials in Thebes? Men like Powerer, who were using the plundered gold of the dead pharaohs to fund their own power base in a failing state. The evidence suggests a massive cover-up, a conspiracy of corruption that reached the very top. A generation later, a small group of devout priests, realizing the situation is hopeless, undertakes a desperate and secret mission. They know they can no longer protect the sacred bodies of the kings in their own tombs. So under the cover of darkness, they become holy body snatchers. They go from tomb to tomb, gathering up the desecrated mummies of the greatest pharaohs of the empire. You can imagine the solemn torchlit procession carrying the mortal remains of Thutmose III, Seti I, and Ramesses the Great himself out of their plundered sepulchres. They re-wrap the bodies, add dockets, identifying whose mummy is whose, and then hide them all, dozens of them, in a single unmarked secret cache high in the Theban cliffs. It is the ancient world's most high-stakes witness protection program. You are left in a hollowed-out world. The gods of the Golden Age are gone, their bodies violated, their treasures melted down to buy grain. The moral and spiritual authority of the state is bankrupt. Egypt is a weak, divided and broken nation. A society that has been forced to eat its own sacred past has no future. The throne is an empty symbol, and the stage is set for a new wave of invaders to come and claim the scraps of a once great empire. The Valley of the Kings is a graveyard of ghosts. The great empire of the new kingdom is a memory. You are living in a land that is no longer one, but many. Egypt has fractured. In the north, in the Nile Delta, a dynasty of kings descended from Libyan mercenaries rules from the city of Tanis. In the south, your home of Thebes is the capital of a de facto independent state ruled by the powerful high priests of the god Amun. The rest of the country is a patchwork of petty princes and local chieftains. The two lands are a dysfunctional family living in the same house but refusing to speak to one another. For centuries, your ancestors, the mighty pharaohs of the New Kingdom, had colonized the lands to the south, the region you know as Nubia. They built massive temples there, exploited its rich gold mines, and conscripted its men into their armies. They imposed their culture and their gods on the Nubian people. But as Egypt weakened and withdrew, the Nubians rose. They formed their own powerful independent state, the Kingdom of Kush. And a strange thing had happened. The colonized had fallen in love with the culture of the colonizer. The Kushite kings ruling from their capital at Napata, deep in modern-day Sudan, worshipped the Egyptian gods with a fervor and piety that had long since faded in Egypt itself. They worshipped Amun, the great god of Thebes. They built pyramids for their tombs, not the grand structures of Giza, but smaller, steeper pyramids in an ancient, consciously archaic style. They saw themselves not as a separate people, but as the true custodians of Egyptian tradition. They looked north at the squabbling, decadent Egyptians and were appalled. They were like die-hard fans of a classic band who were horrified to see the original members showing up drunk and forgetting the lyrics to their greatest hits. This sets the stage for the arrival of the Kushite king Pi. He is a powerful, charismatic, and profoundly religious man. From his throne in Napata, he sees the chaos in Egypt as a sacrilegious offense to his patron god Amun, whose sacred land has been allowed to fall into disunity. He decides it is his holy duty to intervene. You are in Thebes when his army arrives from the south. You expect a brutal foreign conquest. Instead, you witness a disciplined, pious force that marches directly to the great temple of Karnak to pay homage to Amun. This is the mainstream historical fact of the age, which Paya himself documented in breathtaking detail on his victory stela. His campaign is not framed as a conquest, but as a holy crusade to cleanse and reunify the Holy Land. He sails his army north, defeating the coalition of Libyan princes from the delta one by one. His stela gives a vivid personal account of the campaign. After a long siege of one city, its rebellious ruler Nimlot finally surrenders. When Pa enters the city, he ignores the treasury and the harem. The first thing he demands to see are Nimlot's famous stables. This is where a quirky and revealing tidbit of his personality shines through. Pai finds that the beautiful horses have been starved and neglected during the siege, and he is overcome with rage. He berates the defeated prince more for this act of animal cruelty than for the treason of rebellion. I swear, Pai's inscription reads, "It is more painful to my heart that my horses have been starved than any other evil that you have done in your recklessness." After his victory is complete, Pai accepts the submission of the northern kings and then surprisingly sails back south to his home in Nubia, his holy mission accomplished. But his actions have changed the world. Was it truly a religious crusade, as his stela claims? Or was it something more? Historians still debate the primary motivation for the Kushite invasion. Was it a pious king's genuine desire to restore Ma'at? Or was it a calculated geopolitical move by a rising southern empire using the convenient justification of religion to seize control of the priceless Nile Valley? Whatever the motive, the result is the same. Pa's brother Shabaka will succeed him and come north again, this time to stay. He and his descendants will rule all of Egypt as the 25th dynasty. For the first time, you have a line of black pharaohs on the throne of Horus. And under their rule, Egypt experiences a surprising renaissance. They see themselves not as conquerors, but as restorers. They commission new artworks carved in the pure classical styles of the Old and Middle Kingdoms. They painstakingly copy and preserve ancient religious texts. It is a world turned upside down. The former colony now rules the empire. The students now lecture the teachers. And for a brief shining moment, it seems to work. The black pharaohs from the south, with their deep piety and their reverence for the past, have reunified the two lands and breathed new life into its ancient traditions. They are the true heirs of the divine bloodline, not by genetics, but by faith. But their dream of restoring Egypt's golden age is a fragile one. Far to the northeast, a new, terrifyingly brutal empire is rising, a military machine that grinds nations to dust. The Assyrians are coming, and their gods are gods of iron and fire. The reign of the Black Pharaohs is a strange and noble dream. You are living in a reunified Egypt, a nation whose ancient traditions are being carefully restored by these pious kings from the south. The Kushite pharaoh Taharqa, a powerful and competent ruler, has renovated the temples and brought a sense of order back to the two lands. For a fleeting moment, it feels like the glories of the past might just be within reach again. But a storm is gathering in the east, an empire of iron and blood, whose thirst for conquest is absolute. In Mesopotamia, the Assyrian Empire has risen to become the most terrifying military machine the world has ever known. They are a new breed of conqueror masters of siege warfare, equipped with superior iron weapons and fueled by a state ideology of calculated brutality. They are like that one player in a grand strategy game who ignores diplomacy entirely and puts all their skill points into sheer overwhelming force. And they have set their sights on the ancient wealth of the Nile Valley. The clash of these two great empires, Egypt and Assyria, becomes the defining conflict of your age. The first Assyrian invasion under their king Esarhaddon is a shock. The Assyrians drive Taharqa out of his northern capital of Memphis and all the way back to Thebes. But the moment the main Assyrian army turns back east to deal with other rebellions, the resilient Taharqa sweeps north again, recapturing Memphis and slaughtering the Assyrian garrisons. This only serves to enrage the beast. Esarhaddon's son, the great and terrible Ashurbanipal, ascends to the Assyrian throne, and he is determined to finish the job to crush Egypt once and for all. Before you ever see an Assyrian soldier, you hear the stories. Their reputation for cruelty is a weapon in itself, a form of psychological warfare designed to make cities surrender without a fight. You hear of how their kings boast in their official annals carved in stone for all to read of flaying rebellious governors alive and draping their skin over the city walls. You hear of them piling the severed heads of their enemies into pyramids and deporting entire populations into slavery. They really had a flair for the dramatic when it came to writing their annual reports. This is the terror that is marching towards you. Ashurbanipal's army storms into Egypt. They defeat the Kushite forces and chase them south. They are not content with just capturing the north. They march on your home, the sacred ancient capital of Thebes, the city of the god Amun himself. You huddle behind the city walls as the Assyrian army, a sea of iron helmets and grim-faced soldiers, surrounds you. The siege is brutal and efficient. Their siege towers and battering rams pound at your defenses. The will to resist crumbles in the face of such overwhelming, pitiless force. The city falls. What happens next is a trauma from which Egypt will never truly recover. This is the mainstream historical fact that echoes down through the ages, a moment of such catastrophic violation that it is even mentioned in the Old Testament. In 663 BCE, the Assyrians carry out the great sack of Thebes. Ashurbanipal himself described his victory with chilling pride. "I conquered the whole of the city and leveled it to its foundations. I took as booty silver, gold, precious stones, the treasures of the palace. Colourful clothing, fine linen, great horses, and the people male and female. 2 tall obelisks made of shining electrum I removed from their bases and carried them to Assyria. You witness the looting of the great temple of Karnak, a sanctuary that has stood for over 1,000 years. Its treasure is filled with the plunder of an empire. The Assyrian soldiers strip it bare, melting down centuries of sacred offerings. But was the destruction as total as the Assyrian propaganda claimed? Historians still argue about the extent of the actual devastation. Was every home burned, every citizen slaughtered or enslaved? Or was it a more targeted and ruthlessly efficient plundering of the city's immense wealth, with the boasts of total destruction being an exaggeration for political effect? As a survivor huddled in the smoking ruins of your holy city, the distinction probably feels meaningless. The terror was real. The violation was absolute. The Kushite pharaohs are driven back into Nubia for good. Their noble dream of restoring Egypt is shattered. The Assyrians, however, have no interest in occupying Egypt permanently. It is too large, too proud, and too far from their own capital of Nineveh. Instead, they install a native Egyptian prince from the city of Sais in the Delta, a man named Necho, as their puppet king. He and his descendants will rule as the 26th dynasty, paying tribute to their Assyrian overlords. It's a new model of empire, less about direct rule and more about installing a local manager who can be trusted to forward them the profits. You are now living in a broken land. Egypt, the eternal kingdom, the first great superpower, has been crushed and humiliated. It is a vassal state, a prize to be fought over by ascending empires. The experience of the Assyrian war machine has left a deep and permanent scar on the Egyptian soul. The age of divine kings ruling a divinely protected land is over. The gods did not save Thebes. The Pharaoh is no longer the master of his own destiny. The Assyrians were the first to prove it so brutally, but you have a sinking feeling they will not be the last. The boot of the Assyrian war machine has faded, but it was replaced by an even larger and more organized power. For the better part of 2 centuries, with a few brief sputtering moments of rebellion, your world has been a province in the vast Persian Empire.
You have a new master, a great king who rules from a distant palace in Persepolis, and his governors, the satraps, rule your land with a heavy hand. They have all the cultural sensitivity of a bulldozer. The memory of the Persian king Cambyses, who is said to have stabbed the sacred Apis bull with his own dagger, is a wound that has never healed. You have been paying tribute to a foreign lord who holds your gods and your traditions in contempt. You are a people waiting for a savior. Then news arrives from the north, carried on the swift currents of trade and rumor. The Persian Empire is being shattered. A young, brilliant, and seemingly invincible king from the rough, mountainous land of Macedonia is carving his way through Anatolia and the Levant. His name is Alexander. He has crushed the Persian Emperor Darius in a great battle. Now he is marching towards Egypt. You brace yourself for the arrival of a new master, wondering only if he will be better or worse than the last. In the year 332 BCE, Alexander and his Macedonian army arrive at your borders. The Persian governor, his armies already destroyed in previous battles, wisely decides to surrender the entire country without a fight. You watch, holding your breath, as the Greek soldiers march into your city of Memphis. There is no looting, no burning, no sacrilege. It's like the new management arriving after everyone hated the old boss. Alexander, it seems, has done his homework. He immediately makes a great public show of honoring the Egyptian gods. He offers a magnificent sacrifice to the Apis bull, the very animal the Persians had defiled. He restores the temples and wins the instant support of the powerful and resentful Egyptian priesthood. It is a masterful public relations campaign. The Egyptians, weary of Persian oppression, hail him as a liberator. But Alexander is not content to be a liberator. His ambition is boundless. He wants to be the legitimate ruler of this ancient land. He wants to be Pharaoh. And he knows that to be a true Pharaoh, you must be more than a man. You must be the son of a god. So he announces a plan that stuns his own generals. He will undertake the perilous 8-day journey west across the unforgiving Libyan desert to a remote oasis called Siwa. For centuries, this oasis has been home to one of the most famous oracles in the ancient world, an oracle of the Egyptian god Amun, whom the Greeks identified with their own king of the gods, Zeus. This is a mainstream historical fact that marks Alexander's full embrace of his new role. He is not just conquering Egypt, he is becoming Egyptian. You can imagine the grueling journey, the shimmering heat, the endless sea of sand.
When he finally reaches the green paradise of the oasis, he is led into the inner sanctum of the temple to consult the oracle alone. What happens in that secret chamber will change how he sees himself and how the world sees him forever. He never reveals the exact words the priest spoke to him, claiming it was a secret he would share only with his mother back in Macedonia. But the story that his companions tell spreads like wildfire. The high priest of the temple had greeted Alexander with the words, "O son of the god." Was this a divine proclamation? Or, as some of the Greeks in his entourage whispered, was it the world's most consequential Freudian slip? The priest, speaking Greek with a heavy Egyptian accent, may have intended to say, "O Paidion," which means, "O my son." But what came out sounded like, "O Paidios," which means, "O son of Zeus." Miracle or misunderstanding, it was all the confirmation Alexander needed. But what did Alexander himself believe? Historians still argue about his personal beliefs regarding his own divinity. Was this journey to Siwa a cynical but brilliant piece of political theatre, a calculated move to win the hearts of his new Egyptian subjects? Or did this young man, raised on the heroic tales of Achilles and Heracles and told by his ambitious mother that his true father was a god, genuinely come to believe that he was more than mortal? He returns from the desert a changed man. He is no longer just Alexander of Macedon. He is Alexander, the son of Amun Zeus. In a grand ceremony in the old capital of Memphis, you witness him being crowned with the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. He is now your pharaoh. Before he leaves Egypt to march east and hunt down the last remnants of the Persian Empire, he performs one final act of creation. He sails to the Mediterranean coast to a small fishing village. There, he personally designs the layout for a great new capital city, a city that will be a bridge between Egypt and his new Greek world, a city that will bear his name for all time, Alexandria. And with that, he is gone. He has been in your land for less than a year, and he will never return alive. But he has irrevocably altered your destiny. The hated Persians are gone. You have a new pharaoh, a Greek god-king who has honored your traditions. And you have the blueprint for a new city that will become the intellectual and cultural capital of the world. The long, slow, 3,000-year-old story of the native Egyptian pharaohs is over. You are now part of the Hellenistic age, and the stage is set for Alexander's generals to tear his new empire apart and fight for the ultimate prize, the sacred, ancient, and now vacant throne of Egypt. Alexander the Great, your new pharaoh, the son of Amun, is dead. He has conquered the known world, and then in a drunken fever in the distant city of Babylon, he dies without naming a clear heir. His final words when asked who his vast empire should go to were supposedly, "to the strongest." It is the starting pistol for 40 years of brutal, chaotic warfare between his top generals, a group of ambitious men known as the Diadochi, or the Successors. It is the messiest corporate breakup in history following the sudden death of the CEO who left no will. While the other generals scramble for control of Macedonia and Asia, one of the canniest and most cautious of their number, a man named Ptolemy, makes a calculated decision. He eschews the grand prize of the whole empire and instead seizes its wealthiest, most ancient and most easily defensible province, Egypt. You watch as he establishes himself as governor or satrap, ruling in the name of Alexander's phantom heirs. But Ptolemy knows that to truly rule Egypt you need more than an army. You need divine legitimacy, and he secures it with a single act of breathtaking audacity. Alexander's body, embalmed in honey and placed in a magnificent golden sarcophagus, is being transported from Babylon back to Macedonia for a royal burial. Ptolemy leads an army into Syria, intercepts the funeral procession and hijacks it. He steals the body of his dead commander, the man you accepted as a living god, and brings it back to Egypt. It is the most audacious act of identity theft in history. He buries Alexander in Memphis and later in a grand tomb in his new capital, Alexandria. The message is clear and powerful. He who holds the body of the last legitimate pharaoh is his true successor. Ptolemy IV, now calling himself Soter, or Savior, is crowned pharaoh, founding a new dynasty that will last for 300 years. He and his successors will rule not from the ancient capitals of Memphis or Thebes, but from the gleaming new Greek-speaking city of Alexandria. A new ruling class of Macedonian and Greek soldiers and administrators is established. They are the new elite controlling the wealth of the country, while you and your fellow native Egyptians are largely left to your ancient ways in the countryside as long as you pay your taxes. To bridge the cultural gap between the new Greek rulers and the ancient Egyptian populace, Ptolemy commissions a new god. You are introduced to the worship of Serapis. He is a strange hybrid deity designed by a committee to appeal to everyone. He has the flowing hair and beard of a Greek god like Zeus or Hades, but he is identified with your own Osiris and the sacred Apis bull. It is a brilliant piece of social engineering, the ancient world's first attempt at a divinely mandated corporate merger. Ptolemy first ruled as a Macedonian, marrying prominent noblewomen from his own culture. But it is his son, Ptolemy II, who will take the final shocking step to fully transform his Greek family into an Egyptian pharaonic dynasty. He marries his full-blooded sister Arsinoe II. This is an act that horrifies the Greek world. Incest between siblings is one of their greatest taboos. The court poets in Alexandria mock the king with the sarcastic nickname Philadelphos, the sister lover. But Ptolemy and the brilliant ambitious Arsinoe are not playing to a Greek audience. They are playing to you. They know your history. They know that the divine family of Osiris and Isis were brother and sister. They know that the pharaohs of old sometimes married their sisters to keep the divine bloodline pure. What is scandalous in Athens is a sign of divinity in Thebes. But why did they do it? Historians still argue about the motivation. Was it a cold political calculation to perfectly emulate the pharaohs of old? Was it a pragmatic economic move to ensure that the immense wealth of the royal house was not diluted by marrying into outside families? Or was it also a personal drama driven by the formidable Arsinoe, a woman who had been married off, widowed and exiled, who then returned to her brother's court and maneuvered her way into becoming not just his wife, but his co-ruler and equal, whatever the reason the precedent is set? And it will become the defining characteristic of this new dynasty. From this point on, for the next 2.5 centuries, brother-sister marriage becomes the standard operating procedure for the House of Ptolemy. You will be ruled by a Ptolemy III who marries a Berenice, a Ptolemy IV who marries his sister Arsinoe III, a Ptolemy V who marries a Cleopatra. The names repeat, the relationships fold in on themselves. The royal family becomes a closed loop, a house of vipers dwelling in splendid isolation in their palaces in Alexandria. They speak Greek, not Egyptian. They are gods, but they are alien gods. Their family tree ceases to be a tree at all with its healthy, spreading branches. Instead, it becomes a tangled, thorny, inward-growing wreath. They are now a dynasty that has embraced and perfected incest as a tool of state. And in doing so, they have created a pressure cooker of paranoia, jealousy, and murderous ambition that will soon turn their gilded halls into a bloody arena. The house that Ptolemy built has been rotting from the inside for 250 years. The endless cycle of brother-sister marriage has concentrated not only the family's wealth, but also its paranoia, its ambition, and its penchant for bloodshed. The Ptolemaic family tree is now a poisoned wreath. You are a citizen of Alexandria, a city of dazzling beauty and deadly politics, and you are about to witness the final spectacular implosion of this Greek house of vipers. The king on the throne is Ptolemy XII, a weak and ineffective ruler mocked by his own people with the nickname Auletes the flute player. His reign is a sorry tale of bribing Roman senators to keep his throne, and he is eventually driven out by his own people, only to be restored by a Roman army. He leaves behind a kingdom that is effectively a client state of Rome, and a family of children who have been taught from birth that power is a zero-sum game. The Ptolemaic succession is less of a plan and more of a brutal family reunion where only one person is expected to leave standing. When Auletes dies, his will registered in Rome dictates that his two eldest children shall rule jointly his fiercely intelligent and charismatic 18-year-old daughter Cleopatra and her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy XIII. And in keeping with family tradition, they are to marry each other. It is by any standard the world's most awkward arranged marriage, a partnership doomed from the start. You watch from the colonnades and marketplaces of Alexandria as the co-rule immediately descends into a power struggle. The young king is a pawn controlled by a cabal of his powerful advisors, a eunuch named Pothinus, and a general named Achilles. They see the brilliant and popular Cleopatra as a threat to their own influence. They begin to sideline her, removing her name from official documents and turning the people of the city against her. Within 3 years, Cleopatra is forced to flee Alexandria, escaping into exile in Syria, where she raises her own mercenary army. The civil war has begun. Into this purely local, if characteristically bloody family feud, a new and decisive power arrives. Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, fresh from defeating his great rival Pompey, sails into Alexandria's harbour with a small fleet. He intends to act as the executor of the dead king's will and settle the dispute. Cleopatra, trapped outside the city, sees her one chance. In a famously audacious move, she has herself smuggled through enemy lines, reputedly rolled up in a carpet or a laundry bag, and delivered directly into Caesar's private chambers. The arrival of Caesar and his legions with the exiled queen turns the political struggle into a full-scale war in the streets of your city. This is the mainstream historical fact of the age, the Alexandrian War. You huddle in your home as Caesar's small, disciplined Roman force is besieged inside the royal palace by the much larger army loyal to Ptolemy XIII. The fighting is fierce and destructive. Parts of the city are set ablaze, and in the chaos, a fire spreads to the warehouses near the docks, destroying an untold number of scrolls belonging to the great library. The war ends when Roman reinforcements arrive. At the Battle of the Nile, the boy king's army is crushed. Ptolemy XIII, trying to flee across the river, falls from his boat. Weighed down by the heavy golden armor he is wearing, the 14-year-old pharaoh sinks to the bottom of the sacred river and drowns. Cleopatra has won. She is now with Caesar's backing the undisputed ruler of Egypt. But for the sake of appearances, both Roman and Egyptian, she needs a co-ruler. She is forced into another marriage this time, with her even younger brother, the 11-year-old Ptolemy XIV. You see them appear together in public, two pharaohs on one throne, but everyone knows it is a sham. The real power now resides with Cleopatra and her Roman lover. Soon, she gives birth to a son whom she names Ptolemy Caesar, but who is known to everyone as Caesarion Little Caesar. Her young brother husband is now not just an irrelevance, he is an obstacle. A few years later, after Caesar's assassination in Rome, Ptolemy XIV dies suddenly. No one is surprised. It is almost certain that Cleopatra had him poisoned. She clearly believed in a one-strike policy for annoying co-rulers. She immediately elevates her infant son Caesarion to be her new co-pharaoh. But there is one loose thread, one final family rival. Her younger sister Arsinoe had also been a contender for the throne during the Civil War. Cleopatra's ruthlessness is absolute. This quirky, horrifying tidbit showcases her character. Years later, she will make a simple request to her new Roman patron, Mark Antony. He dispatches assassins to the sacred temple of Artemis in Ephesus, where Arsinoe is living in exile. They kill the young woman on the temple steps, a shocking act of sacrilege that horrified the ancient world. Was Cleopatra a monster driven by a pure lust for power, or was she a patriot? Historians still argue about her true motivations. Was she a pragmatist who knew that only a single ruthless ruler could hope to hold Egypt together and fend off the ever-encroaching power of Rome? She now sits alone on the throne, the undisputed queen. She has outmaneuvered and murdered her way through her own family. She is the last of the Ptolemies, the deadliest viper in a nest of snakes. She has proven herself a master of the bloody game of pharaonic succession. But her final opponent will not be a jealous sibling. It will be the full terrifying might of the Roman Republic. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, sits on a throne secured by her own ruthless genius. She has murdered her way through her own family, eliminating every sibling rival to become the sole undisputed ruler of the Nile. She is a true Ptolemy, a deadly viper in a family of snakes. But she is also a brilliant stateswoman, and she knows that her kingdom, rich as it is, survives only by the grace of a greater power. Her affair with Julius Caesar bought her the throne. Now, with Caesar gone, she forges a new alliance, one of both political necessity and epic passion, with the man who now controls the eastern half of the Roman world, the general Mark Antony. You are a courtier in her Alexandria, and you are witness to the last great glittering chapter of pharaonic Egypt. Antony, a man of huge appetites and legendary charisma, is captivated by your queen. He makes Alexandria his home. Together, they are the world's most powerful and volatile celebrity couple. They rule the East like gods dreaming of a new Roman-Egyptian empire with its capital here in your city. They live a life of legendary opulence and pleasure. You might even be invited to one of the feasts of their exclusive club, the Society of Inimitable Livers, a group dedicated to living life to its absolute fullest. But in Rome, Antony's rival, the cold, calculating and brilliant young man named Octavian, watches and waits. He sees Antony's affair with the foreign queen not as a romance, but as a betrayal of Rome. He launches a masterful propaganda campaign, painting Antony as a drunken, decadent slave to an Eastern sorceress, a man who has abandoned his Roman virtues. Finally, Octavian persuades the Roman Senate to declare war not on Antony, a fellow Roman, but on Cleopatra herself. The final confrontation for control of the world comes at sea in the year 31 BCE, off the coast of Actium in western Greece. It is a mainstream historical fact that will echo for eternity. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet is huge with massive, powerful warships. But they are slow and difficult to maneuver. Octavian's fleet, commanded by his genius Admiral Agrippa, is smaller, lighter, and faster. You wait in Alexandria for news, and when it comes, it is a catastrophe. Agrippa's ships have outmaneuvered and decimated their fleet.
Cleopatra, seeing the battle was lost, used a gap in the line to flee with her personal squadron. Antony, seeing her leave, abandoned his men and his flagship to follow her. They have escaped with their lives, but they have lost the war, and with it, the world. They return to Alexandria, and a mood of fatalistic doom settles over the city. They know Octavian will come for them. In a moment of supreme gallows humor, they change the name of their dining club. The Society of Inimitable Livers is renamed the Society of Those Who Will Die Together. It is a book club with a very, very short reading list. A year later, Octavian's legions arrive. They sweep aside what little resistance is left. As the Roman soldiers enter the city, Antony receives a false report that Cleopatra is already dead. In despair, he falls on his sword. The wound is mortal, but not instantaneous. He is carried dying to the mausoleum where Cleopatra has barricaded herself. He is hoisted up to a high window, and you can only imagine the scene inside as he dies in the arms of the woman for whom he gave up an empire. Cleopatra is now alone the last sovereign ruler in a 3,000-year-old line. She is captured by Octavian's men. He intends to keep her alive for one reason: to march her in chains through the streets of Rome as the star attraction in his victory parade, the ultimate symbol of his triumph. Cleopatra, the proud queen, the descendant of kings, the woman who called herself the living Isis, knows this, and she will not allow it. She asks for and is granted permission to prepare Antony's body for burial. She dresses herself in her finest royal regalia, every inch the queen. She writes a final letter to Octavian and gives it to a guard. When Octavian reads it and realizes her intent, he sends men running to her mausoleum. They burst through the doors, but it is too late. They find her dead on her golden couch, her 2 loyal handmaidens dying at her feet. How did she die? The story that will be told forever, the one popularized by Plutarch, is that an asp, an Egyptian cobra, the symbol of divine royalty, was smuggled to her in a basket of figs. It is a death worthy of a goddess, a royal, almost mystical end. But historians still argue. Was it the snake? Or was it a more reliable, fast-acting poison which she could have hidden in a hollow hair comb, ready for just this moment? The truth died with her. With Cleopatra's last breath, the story of the Pharaohs comes to an end. Octavian, taking no chances with any potential rivals, has her son, the 17-year-old Caesarion, hunted down and killed. His supposed justification is chilling and pragmatic. 2 Caesars are one too many. The Ptolemaic dynasty is extinct. The bloodline of the Pharaohs, which began in the mists of time with the mythical Scorpion King, has run its final course. And so the curtain falls. The long, feverish dream of pharaonic Egypt is over. You can feel the great silence that descends upon the land. In the streets of Alexandria, the marching sandals of Roman legionaries now keep the peace. The ancient temples still stand, their stone walls covered with the images of hawk-headed gods and divine kings, but they are becoming museum pieces, relics of a faith whose central pillar, the living pharaoh, has been shattered forever. Egypt, the eternal kingdom, is now just another province in a new and much larger empire. Let the final images of our story begin to soften now, the sharp edges of the drama fading into the gentle quiet of the night. The blood, the incest, the madness, all of it recedes into the deep well of the past. The whispers in the harem die away. The clash of bronze on bronze fades to a distant echo. The glint of gold in a newly opened tomb dims and disappears. All that is left is the soft, warm sand stretching out under a silent, star-filled sky,
covering the secrets of 3,000 years. The great river Nile still flows as it always has, carrying the memories of gods and monsters northward to the sea, and everything is at last quiet. The story is told. Let it go. Let the current carry you now gently into your own peaceful and untroubled dreams. End of script. Sweet dreams.